Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Let's call this regular meeting of the Washoe County School District Board of Trustees to order. And we will, as always, begin with our roll call. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. Trustee Feemster, absent. Trustee Frankel,
On vacation.
absent. Trustee Simon Holland.
Here.
I'm here. Trustee Mayer.
Here.
Trustee Raymond.
On vacation.
On vacation. And Trustee Taylor.
I am here.
So we do have a quorum.
By a trustee.
thin
we have a quorum. Thank you very much. Now we will have our Pledge of Allegiance. And for this pledge, let's have the new K-12 reporter from the RGJ. Sam is here with us. He has volunteered, quote unquote, to lead us in the pledge. Okay, we'll see if we have any public comment to start, JJ? Yes. Okay.
Julie Hunter and Fred Steinman.
Coming up together. All right. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. My name is Fred Steinman. I'm an assistant research professor with the University of Nevada, Reno, as well as the chapter secretary for the Nevada chapter of the American Planning Association. And it is my pleasure to present each one of you here today with your very own copy of the recently published February 2017 Nevada Planning Guide, produced jointly between the university's Center for Economic Development and Nevada Leadership Program and the Nevada chapter of the American Planning Association. The mission of the Nevada chapter of the American Planning Association as the state chapter for the national APA is to provide professional development and educational opportunities for elected officials, appointed officials, government executives and staff, members of the public, private sector interests, interested in learning more about the wide world of planning. This marries very nicely with our mission at the Nevada Leadership Program to provide professional development opportunities regarding the nuts and bolts of government administration in Nevada. And the chapter and my program, the Nevada Leadership Program, recently partnered to produce the Nevada Planning Guide, which of course we are providing at no charge to every elected and appointed official throughout the state of Nevada. So all planning commissions, city councils, county commissions, and school boards that will have us. The planning guide itself was written over a course of about a year and a half. We had 8 volunteer full-time writers with a combined experience of almost 100 years in planning and government administration. The guide, even though you're getting your own printed copy, the guide is available to everyone and anyone for free. They can download it and print it as many times as they'd like from the chapter's website, as well as the website maintained by the College of Business at the University of Nevada. There are a number of other materials provided in the guide, some additional information about what we do at the University Center for Economic Development, as well as information about upcoming Nevada Leadership Program and Nevada APA professional development opportunities. With all that, my pleasure to introduce Julie Hunter, who's our Planning Official Development Officer.
Thanks, Fred. Good afternoon. Thank you for having us.
Good afternoon.
I am the Planning Official Development Officer for the Nevada chapter of the American Planning Association. And for the record, my name is Julie Hunter. I am the Senior Planner for the Washoe County Health District Air Quality Management Division. Health and planning have a really great connection together and helped lead the Nevada Planning Guide revision. So that was a great to work with all those planners. And as the Planning Official Development Officer, I really serve as a reference person for planning resources, for planning officials and elected and appointed officials, and help coordinate the exchange of information and ideas. I can provide training materials such as the guide that you have and training opportunities and workshops. So if you're interested in a specific planning topic or would like to hear from a subject matter expert, that's something that we can put together in a social event or a luncheon or a workshop of some sort. So if you're interested, give us a call. We have information in the planning guide, and our business cards are also in the planning guide. Thank you for having us.
Thank you both, Julie and Fred. We know that you reached out and wanted to come and share this with us, so we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking your time.
Thank you.
We have an individual wishing to remain anonymous.
Okay. Welcome. Thank you for being here. You can sit if you desire to. Would you prefer? Yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate
No problem at all.
it. Much stabler than my cane.
I understand.
Thank you. President, board members, I'm speaking anonymously due to the pushback we survivors of domestic violence are getting from the government. And one of those government entities is the Washoe County School District. We'd like to get this nipped in the bud before it gets any worse. You already have had 2 months to read the evidence doctrine that was presented in the meeting minutes a couple months back. And that evidence doctrine is what the district court judges is going by to deny Washoe County School District children protection orders against their abusers, which is usually their fathers. We have a domestic violence problem in this community, and the state of Nevada has held the title as the most violent of domestically violent states for over a decade. The reason I come to you today is to let you know about Jackie Bryant Rombardo. Yes, she is related to Neil Rombardo, and as his wife, and he's not going to clarify, I have heard reports, ex-wife. She is the district court administrator. Again, the district court is where Washoe County School District students have to go to get protection orders against their fathers who are abusing them. Jackie Rombardo has a policy that was issued from the Supreme Court that she is required to go by, and you have a copy of it today. And it is called the Policy for Handling, the Policy for Handling Filed, Lodged, and Presumptively Confidential Documents. And this is a policy that withstands for protection order cases. And Rule 2 of the policy states that Jackie Bryant Rombardo has to accept any protection order application and any attachments with that. However, when you read the evidence doctrine, any photographs of the children evidencing batteries to them is not included in the application court case file. That is a crime in this state. Court case files cannot be alternated. And so because these photographs of Washoe County School District children, and they're usually nude photographs evidencing bruises up and down their body when they've been beaten, because it's not going into the court case files, these children are being denied protection orders. So we'd like to speak with you to get this resolved. We do need, because of the conflict of interest, we need to speak to someone legally, as we have in the past to Mr. Reich, because he does not have a conflict with Jackie Bryant Rombardo. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for being here.
Jeff Church.
Turn this off.
Oh, don't worry about it. You take care of you. Thank you so much. Mr. Church, welcome.
Good
You have 3
afternoon,
minutes, sir.
everyone.
Good afternoon.
Hello, my name is Jeff Church. I run a website, renotaxrevolt.com, recently updated. I invite you to take a look. Today I want to speak on what I call the WC1 aftermath, and I want to quote something in the newspaper, so it must be true. And it's a quote from the school district from Mr. Riley, one of your employees. Quote, "The district hopes that those factors that drive up construction costs will also increase the amount of sales tax revenue WCSD pulls in from WC1. As more people move to Reno and make construction more costly, they're also spending more money. The district's logic, according to Riley, is more people and more spending will lead to more sales tax revenue." End quote. Not true, not in the least, unfortunately. Recent sales tax stats from the Nevada Department of Taxation, and you do have a handout I submitted, saving paper, it's very small, paint a stunning picture of Washoe County sales tax and the effect of WC1 affecting city and county lost revenues. What is it? Overall, Nevada sales tax rose 4.6% statewide. That's good news. but it was down 3.8% in Washoe County for the reporting period. Taxpayers voted with their wallets, and Washoe revenue fell dramatically, costing us millions of dollars since the sales tax increase. So what is that from? Auto sales and parts is known as Category 441, once again, car sales, up almost 20% in Carson. It soared an amazing 47.6% in Lyon County. Perhaps some folks even drove to Winnemucca, where it was up 30.5%. Meanwhile, car dealer taxes in Washoe County plunged 8.6%. It's amazing. It's hard to find any other reason than the WC1 aftermath. Various out-of-county dealers emphasize their tax savings for their county in their advertising. For example, Lyon County is 7.1%, Washoe 8.265%, a big difference. The sales drop, in spite of Washoe County's booming growth, as Mr. Riley mentioned, about 6% yearly. And by the way, gas tax just went up 2 cents, where it's now 40 to 50 cents higher, including what you folks pay for the buses and vehicles, much more than it is in Fernley or Carson. So the population in Washoe County is booming. One would expect a 6% sales tax increase, but instead a decrease in the last reporting period of 3.8%. Amazing. And the media is silent. And I just want to cover in the last few seconds, I believe I brought it up before, that according to my information, the school district's a member of the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce is not a nonprofit. It's not a nonprofit 501c3. It's a political advocacy group. Mr. Trey Abney of the Chamber is a paid lobbyist, and I think it's inappropriate that taxpayer funds be used to fund any kind of advocacy group. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Church.
George Lee.
Mr. Lee, welcome. Thank you for being here, sir.
Hi.
Yeah, you have 3 minutes. You'll see the clock.
I attended the meeting at the middle school in last night in Sun Valley, and I noticed something that it's kind of like bad optics, you know, the public being concerned about costs and about spending. I didn't get the impression that any competitive bidding had been done on any of the project that you already had lined up. The contractors, the architects, the artists, everybody was in a row. You know, they were all already selected, and I didn't see anything about competitive bidding, which kind of is one of the main reasons that you can lower costs, is because when they get bidding against each other, then you can get, you know, lower cost designs, lower cost construction, even though they have to meet all of your strict specifications. You did competitive bidding. You didn't make that apparent at the meeting. That's bad optics. And the other thing was, it appeared that for the golf course, there was no plan B. There was no, what if we find that there's radon in the ground out there? You know, you can't build on radon property. It would cost you hundreds of millions of dollars just to do that one thing, to clean radon out or to clean some unknown. That's what I'm getting at. And yet there didn't seem to be any plan B at all. It was all, you know, gangbusters, full speed ahead. There are other sites that could be used. I personally think that we would have higher grade points and higher people going on to college if we position that high school at the TMCC campus by expanding the high school that's there. And by expanding that, we could possibly get federal funds and grants to build parking structures in conjunction with TMCC. We could run introduction programs. We could run shepherding programs to get people from high school directly to TMCC, and then they could move from there to UNR. It could be a smooth flow through there. But by having it separate at the golf course, I don't think you take advantage of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Darla Lee.
Mrs. Lee, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
My husband and I moved to Sparks almost 2 years ago, and we lived in rural Ohio for 35 years. So it was a challenging move for us, but the transition was actually made a lot easier by the nearness of the Wild Creek Golf Course directly to the east of us. This green space with the wildlife it draws to the area is a great blessing. But in May, we heard that the Washoe School District proposed to destroy part of the course in order to build a new high school. If a new high school is needed, I am certainly supportive of that project, or of building a new high school. But choosing the Wild Creek Golf Course for its location, I believe, is a seriously bad decision. We have seen the absolute traffic snarl caused by the Pyramid McCarran expansion for the past 6 months, and frankly, it's ridiculous to think that, busing in 2,500 students via McCarran, Sullivan, and Wedekind would not cause even a greater traffic problem and potential accidents. And all of the residential areas surrounding the golf course, I believe, would be negatively impacted. The other obvious problem is the Wild Creek location would be that it's on a floodplain. I think most people know that. This past winter, we could see the majority of the course was underwater. This also happened in the high water years of 97 and 06, and who's to say that this cycle will not continue? It's not something that is a problem for a golf course to absorb this water, but I would think building like with high schools and, baseball diamonds, et cetera, that would be or could potentially be a disaster. So I'm not a golfer, but by all accounts, the Wild Creek Golf Course is enjoyable and one of the few affordable courses still in the area. And since its opening in 1974, Wild Creek has operated profitably until it was saddled with this large affluent water debt of recent years. But to my knowledge, it's going to be paid off quite soon. It would cost probably upwards of 20 to 30 million to provide another course like the one we already have. So to me, it does not make any sense to destroy this benefit to our community when I believe another suitable site could be found. I urge this board to rethink its proposal because the eventual consequences of a poor decision would certainly affect students and the community for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lee.
Darlene Hess? Hesse.
Welcome, Ms. Hesse. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, all of you. I just want to tell you that I've lived at Wild Creek Golf Course for 40 years. And it's a lovely place. It's just a fantastic place for the golfers, the open area. And we should really protect areas like this. What I'm really mainly concerned about, the loss of the $30 million PGA golf course will be torn up. And then you will build a mega school at the cost of $110 million. And there's the traffic. The noise pollution is unbelievable. I just cannot understand why you would do that. And to bus in all these kids, you really need to look at other places. And I am for education. But I'm not for just spending money foolishly. And I think with this WC1 money coming in, you should really be aware of saving this money for the kids. The kids need the better education, and they don't need real fancy schools either. They just need a wonderful property and teachers. That's what they need. They need good education. I hope you will all consider not doing this. From what I understand, the BLM has $10 an acre property. That's where the schools should be built. It's not so costly. This project here will cost the people of Washoe County a fortune to build. And I'm very disappointed because there are people that really enjoy this golf course, and there's a lot of lovely animals too. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hesse.
That's all I have at this time.
Thank you, Gigi. Did we miss any public comment cards? No? Okay, thank you.
Hi, thank you. I just want to make some corrections or provide the public with some general information. The district, through a process for bidding, went out 4 months ago to the Capital Funding Committee. It was held a public meeting in this building to decide on that process of who was chosen to build the schools. Additionally, we do rigorous testing of the soils of all the school sites that we build our schools on. And we are commissioning a traffic study with various entities to look at the traffic patterns so that we're concerned not only for the safety of our students, but the safety of all, everyone who was in that area. So that's very important to the district. And I also would like to clarify around capital funding. We can only spend capital funding on buildings. We cannot take that money and add it to the general funds by law, just so everyone's clear about the capital money and how we spend it.
Thank you for those clarifications, Superintendent Davis. We'll continue on with the agenda. Agenda item 1.05, action to adopt the agenda. Unless there is a preference from any of my colleagues to do anything differently, I will entertain the motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? No? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, motion carries. Let the record show it is unanimous from the four of us. Okay, we will begin with board reports. And so we will begin with, we'll go right here to my right. Welcome back from all factions of the world, Vice President Simon Holland. We'll begin with you.
Thank you, Madam President. As you mentioned, I was on a European trip and had a wonderful time and met some people from all over the world and had a great experience. I appreciated that time away. Not much to report on school district activities other than the great town hall meeting last night in Sun Valley, and very exciting to be able to share that progress and see that school develop. I know Susan Sievert, one of the members of the Incline Village General Improvement District Board of Trustees, says she did not think she was going to see that school in her lifetime. So very exciting. So thank you. I'll go on to someone else.
Thank you, thank you, Vice President Holland. Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor passes. I don't know if I've ever heard you pass, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Trustee Kelly.
Thank you, Madam President. I've had a good summer. My son and I have been pretty busy visiting, going camping, visiting swimming holes, waterfalls, hot springs, things like that. So it's been a nice, refreshing break. But I'm excited that school is going to be starting soon, not just for my son to get back into school, but for all students to get back into school. And then, yeah, kind of light on the school district stuff as well. But on Thursday morning, there's going to be, it's called Kids on Track. And it's a race for the Boys and Girls Club at Neal Road, and they do a big race. It's a fundraiser, and it starts at 9 o'clock at Miguel Rivera Park. So I just want to put that out there in case anybody wanted to attend. I won't be able to. I'll be at work that time, but if anyone wants to attend, it's a great event, and it supports the Boys and Girls Club. So.
Thank you, Trustee Kelly. And then for me, again, not too much. This is kind of vacation time for most. But I was able to participate. There was we did some videoing at some of the construction sites. The communications team is going to make sure, as they continue to keep the public informed on the building and repair of our schools and school buildings, then as they're in our districts, we as trustees get a chance to go out and play a little bit. And so I was able to go out to our Verdi Elementary School where they were doing some work on the roof. But they did not make me climb up on the roof, so I'm grateful they did that before I got there. Although I had my hard hat. I had my hard hat, just for the record. I had my hard hat. But we were able to go out there and just look at some of the work that was being done there. And it's really exciting to see those dollars working and really making a difference for our kids. And then from there we went on to McQueen High School, and they were actually replacing some carpet, and some teachers were involved. We actually got a chance to talk to and include a father and his son. The son had been homeschooled all of his life up until then, so was looking forward to being a freshman at McQueen. And so it was good just to talk to them, and Superintendent Davis was there, and actually one of the guys laying the carpet, I forgot his name now, was actually a McQueen graduate, which was really cool. So we just got a chance to talk about what it means to kids as they just see new things happening even at existing schools, which is really exciting. And then, of course, last night, as Vice President Holland said, the town hall meeting, what a great turnout. out there at Esther Bennett Elementary School. I hadn't been to that school before, but the tremendous term, packed. The room was packed, a lot of good interaction, a lot of good energy, a lot of good questions. I think it was good as well. And then those who have been a part of this, our partners, RTC, BLM, the architects, the designers that were all there with tables to share information, and CORE, who is the contractor on this, they showed an incredible video that gave us an idea of what the school will look like. And we did, I know I asked a lot of questions, as did Trustee Holland. Thank you, Riley, for making this video available for us to see. JJ tracked it down for us. So the last part of my report will be just to watch this just really impressive video that CORE showed last night to the families out there at Sun Valley. We're driving to school, in case you didn't. We're driving. Superintendent Davis, your report. Thank you, JJ, for getting with Friday to track it down. And we really appreciate that. It's just so exciting to see. Man, it just looked like a big school, didn't it? Like, man, that school looks big. But that's pretty exciting, so. Superintendent Davis?
Thank you. So thank both you and Trustee Simon for coming out yesterday to Town Hall. It was really great to talk to our families and hear their stories. And one of the things that I was completely moved by was this idea that they'd been waiting forever for this. One person came up to, I think Pete and myself, and they said, we've been waiting for this 50 years. And I'm like, I'm not 50 years old. So, but I think the commitment to the Sun Valley community and making the dream come true. So it is very exciting times. With that being said, one of the things that we embarked upon, is Riley in here? Okay, so we have been very transparent with the community about what we say we're going to do with the money, and they can go full-time on WCSDbuilding.com and see the work. Hi, Riley. The work happening. So we're really committed to showing not only repair needs, but also the sites in which we will be building to hold us accountable as we promised the public. Last week was one of those, I was not about academics, I was about the building side. So from being on the top of roofs at schools, bobcats, mixing, just a plethora of things. So we want to show you one of our videos, which was a Facebook Live video. And by the time we walked out to the car from posting the video about the work, somebody in the community, people in the community started texting me. And I think by the time we got back to the office, we had already had like 2,000 hits. And we were like, whoa. But I think the most important thing for me around this is every time we went to a school and I talked to either the contractors or even our workers, there's a connection with them, with the school district or family and friends. And so for me, it was much bigger than us just building schools. It was about how we are intertwined with the community as one. And it was great to hear those stories from contractors about whether their wives were working as teachers or support staff. So I think that really was the thing that made it beautiful for me. So we're going to show you a quick video. I think.
Afternoon, everyone. Riley here with the Washoe County School District, seeing repairs and renovations in action. You can see behind me, they're pulling one of the old rooftop coolers off the building in preparation for some new AC that's going to go in and actually keep our students cool. We're actually out here looking at repairs and renovations today with our superintendent, Tracy Davis, who during the summer comes out to see the other work that goes on to take care of our students. Tracy, how awesome is this to see some of the work made possible by WC1, a big project actually happening right in front of us?
It's a dream come true for our community. I think it's so big because it's not just about right now or when the school starts. This is about for children for decades to come and for our community to come. We know how hard we worked and how hard this community worked for WC1. And this is us giving back to the community our commitment, what we were going to do if it passed. We were going to be transparent. We're going to show you the work. We're going to have an opportunity for you to see it ongoing. And it's so exciting because there's so many projects. And to think we were in a place where we could barely get a project done. And now we have multiple projects to take care of our students and our staff.
And we're seeing it live behind us. This is repairs in action. This is $1 million project, taking that off the roof. We're actually going to have a longer video about this whole thing a little bit later on tonight. But just lastly, for this live video, what does it mean to you to see air conditioning actually going in that'll be functional for students?
Listen, as a former teacher, when it's hot in the room and kids get squirrely, what happens to teachers, as much as they are focused on teaching and learning, they have to deal with the behaviors of the kids. And they're kids, right? It's hot, they're sweating, and so if the room is cool and the kids are settled, you continue with the work. And I think we're providing every teacher and every employee, people who walk in our buildings, an opportunity to ensure that our buildings are well maintained. And because of WC1 will be able to do this. And it's an exciting time to be in Washoe to see this work being done for decades to come.
Well, there you have it. This makes it so that teachers can teach and students can learn. Again, we're going to have a longer video about this on the website a little later on. In the meantime, you can always check .com for more information on this and every project we're doing around the district to make schools better.
So we have some really cool videos to come also that impact. We have students, teachers, parents, just about this work and what it means to the community. I don't know if you noticed, but I had a I Love Public Education shirt on. Part of that shirt and the movement was from our work we did on Capitol Hill, talking about what impacts the budget would have on school districts. We all wore I Love Public Education shirts, and we had opportunities to talk to our senators and our representatives about how they specifically impact each one of our districts as well as the state of Nevada. And finally, our school innovations is out at the National Big Picture Conference. As you know, we are the only big picture school in the state of Nevada. The team's already headed there. I'll be headed out tonight to do our presentation tomorrow, but we're really excited about the work that Innovations has done and will continue to do. That's it.
All right, those videos and others, the part that we kind of missed, Riley, was WCSDbuilding.com, WCSDbuilding.com. So a lot of fun stuff happening. So let's continue to direct people, and when we do our own social media posts and so on like that, to go check that out. A lot of good work being done. Thank you very much. Okay, and we know you have a flight at 3, you have to get out there at 3:30 to catch that flight.
Yeah,
Get the
we're
report.
wrapping up summer graduation, so we're not to the finish line. We know we have a graduation August the 6th, I believe, but so we were in schools and we saw kids trucking along, trying to get to the finish line, so we're really excited about those students also. I don't want to forget to give a shout out for all the teachers and people who worked during the summer. August the 4th. Thank you very much, Madam Deputy. You know I'm not so great with the calendar. I just show up, but it's exciting because we're going to have some more kids get to the finish line.
Let's drag as many of them across as we can. Okay, moving on to agenda item 3. This is our consent agenda. Most of these items should be routine in nature, but if anybody would like to pull something out for consideration or for questions, and as always, there were a couple of questions that went out, great answers, so I'm gonna save you the motion and ask that they already be put as a part of the record. Those questions that came out from Vice President Holland. Any other desires as it pertains to the consent agenda from my colleagues?
Move for approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Motion, is there a second?
I had a question only on on 317. It says the address as 240 Rock, and I went to try and find it. It must be either south or north. Because I couldn't find the building.
So do we have someone that can lend a little clarity to that, so we can, location? Mike just came in, come on in, Mike. You can address that for Trustee Mayor, if you would. You know, it's in Sparks, that's his city, so he'll be out there looking. That's good.
Hi, for the record, I'm Mike Boster with Capital Projects, and I'm sorry, Trustee Mayor, I was en route from the other room. I missed your question.
This building that we have.
We turn your mic on, please, Trustee Mayor. Thank you, sir.
This building that we're renewing this lease, it's at 240 Rock Boulevard. It
Right.
doesn't say north, south. And I went out to look for it, I couldn't find it.
Gotcha. It's South Rock Boulevard. It's right at the southeast intersection of Rock and Mill.
Rock and Mill.
Yes, sir.
And it's, we're renting the second floor?
No, it's a single-story building. It's a single-story building. We're leasing 4,000 square feet there.
Okay, so it's where Child Find is.
Yes, sir. We lease 2 suites there at 240 Rock. One suite is 143, which is the one that is up for approval today, and then there's 101 where Child Find is located.
Okay. I got really mistaken because I thought you, in this report, said second floor, that possibly you would be renting second floor. Okay,
and this building doesn't have a second floor. If that's in the
Yeah.
report somewhere, that wouldn't be correct.
Well, I'll look for it again, but, okay, I know which building it is. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Other questions? There is a motion on the floor that we approve the consent agenda as submitted. Thank you, Mike. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's moving in second. Trustee Mayor, did that answer your question? On
Yeah,
317?
South Rock.
Yes, sir.
Because it just says Rock in this, and I'm looking on Rock, I couldn't find it.
Right, South Rock, south of Mill Street. Yes,
So
sir.
so let's make sure we get that updated then.
Yeah, I'd like that.
Yes, for the records. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda as submitted. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition? Okay, the motion carries. Let the record show it is unanimous. Thank you so much. Just as for all the staff for being here for questions, just as a note, I want to point this out. Our last 2 consent agenda items that we just approved, one was the appointment of Alexandra Chacon as the student representative to the Board of Trustees. And so we don't have our students here today, do we?
She's not here.
She's not here, okay. Summer break, I know, but, I just wanted to acknowledge them just in case. Just in case they could be, zealous. So we do, and we have an official WCSD pin for her when we do see her. And also agenda item 3.25 was appointing Tyler Johnson as the student rep to the Safe and Healthy Schools Commission. So we want to thank both of those students and welcome them. We look forward to them adding tremendous value to both that commission and to this board. All right, agenda item 4.01. This is our presentation and update regarding the Capital Funding Protection Committee meeting that was held on June 29, 2017, and it has a list of all of those projects, the delivery method, CMAR delivery method, update on the prototypes, land acquisitions, activities, and on and on and on, A-list projects and so on, so a major list project. So we're going to pass it on to Mr. Pete Etchert for a report. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Pete Etchart, Chief Operating Officer. So you had made a request that when we have a Capital Funding Protection Committee meeting, that I would come and just kind of give you an update of that meeting. So I'm here today to do that for the June 29th meeting. So just starting right off, first and foremost, Mike Kate, the construction project and finance representative, was reelected as the chairman, and Attorney Tim Rowe, the general public representative, was elected as the vice chair. Next item, at the March 2nd Capital Funding Protection Committee meeting, the committee requested, as part of approving the funding for the CMAR on the South Meadows area elementary school, the Sun Valley area elementary or middle school, and the Spanish Springs area middle school, that we come back with a detailed presentation on the various construction delivery methods, including construction manager at risk, or CMAR. Chris Shimitz, the deputy administrator for the State Public Works Division, provided, I believe, an excellent presentation on design, bid, build, and CMAR to the committee. This was informational only, and there was very good discussion held on that topic. The committee was then provided a presentation regarding the status of the prototype school designs for the new elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. For the high schools, Tammy Zimmerman provided an update on the status of the high school educational specifications. Brad Van Wert and Angela Bigotti from Van Wert Bigotti Architects provided an update for the two middle school designs. And lastly, Jeff Klippenstein and Jeff Current from H&K Architects provided an update for the elementary school designs. Now, on that topic, a discussion was held with the committee that at the next meeting on September 28th, that staff anticipates coming forward with a funding recommendation to be considered by the committee for the construction of the first 3 new schools. If approved, that funding recommendation would then come forward to this body and the Board of Trustees. And we also discussed at that meeting, this is going to be a comprehensive presentation that will include a discussion on value engineering, site development costs, construction inflation, and an update on the revenue projections that we receive for capital funding. Next was an update on land acquisition activities, including the purchase of the Kylie North property for $8.1 million approximately that was approved by this board for the new Spanish Springs area middle school and the future elementary school. It was also brought up on this item that with the purchase of this property in Kylie North, that we also recommend disposal of the 29.4 acres on Vista Boulevard near Los Altos. This site, which was originally on the Vista site I'm talking about, was originally going to be a middle school site, but due to concerns by the city of Sparks, may not have been developable as a middle school site. However, it is a very, very valuable piece of property, and we have recently received 2 appraisals, one for $5 million and one for $5.9 million. And likewise, we discussed that now that we are going forward with the elementary school in the Bella Vista subdivision, that was a donated site, we recommend disposal of the 10-acre site on Wilbur May Parkway that is located too near Double Diamond to really be conducive to building another elementary school. The Bella Vista site gives us much better spacing when it comes to our elementary schools. So we've also acquired 2 appraisals on that site, one for $1.95 million and one for $2.4 million. And we discussed with the recent upswing in real estate pricing, we feel this is a good time for disposal, and currently working with our general counsel on the process that will be brought forward for you for consideration.
May I ask just
Absolutely.
On that site was donated originally, and it's still okay for us to sell it if we don't need it?
I'm not sure if...
I thought you mentioned it was donated originally?
Well, no, the Bella Vista site that we're actually building on was donated. I don't believe the other 2 were donated.
Okay, no, I had that mixed up then. Correct with that. Thank you. No.
Joe says I'm correct, so I must be correct.
Okay, because Joe said, all right. Joe said.
Joe said.
Joe said.
And then lastly, staff provided an update to the committee on the status of several of the capital improvement projects, including the Damani Ranch High School addition, the replacement of the recently flooded ground shop, and the nutrition services expansion. So we just kind of gave an update for the CIP. And so we had a very full agenda. There wasn't really any action items except for naming the chair and vice chair, but a lot of discussion items. But the next meeting, as I said, will be a very full meeting with lots of action items. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Trustee Kelly?
Yeah, Pete, how is the Damani expansion going? How closer is it to being done? Will it be done in time for school starting again?
The addition's going fantastic, you know, and I see it every week, and I just amazed how fast it's going up. But no, it will not be done by the time school starts. But the goal was to have it done near Christmas, Christmas, New Year's, around that time frame.
Great. Other questions? It's just exciting to get the updates and know that things are moving and buildings are being built and renovated and all of that stuff. So it's just a real exciting time. So please, when you get a chance to, please continue to thank that committee on behalf of the board, because their role is extremely important, and making sure that we're doing the things that we say we're going to do, and because they work in this field, day to day, most of them, asking some good questions and really advising us. So we appreciate them. They're being willing to take the time to do that. Very important. Mm-hmm. Superintendent Davis?
Great job, and I just want to say to Encyclopedia Gabika, which we have dubbed him because he knows everything about schools from, it's just crazy what he knows in his mind. If any of the trustees want to go out as we film these videos on land and just see those things and have an opportunity to make sure you get with Riley, and the crews will take you out to see some of those things, because I think it's great when people are talking to us and we actually go see the site and do the work. So you're definitely all welcome to be a part of that.
And that's been great. Riley's been pretty good at emailing the trustees in those particular areas as well, as things are going on, just as an advance. Say we're going to be out there on Thursday. Sometimes you get a week's notice, sometimes you get a day's notice. But he's been pretty good about saying, hey, we're going to be out there. If you can make it, be great. So I think it's great, especially, period, whenever you can go, but especially in your areas, because it's just a little more exciting. A little more exciting. Thank you for your work, Pete.
Thank you, and I'll make sure to pass on your thanks to the Capital Funding Protection Committee. Thank you.
Please do. Thank you so much. Okay, now on to agenda item 4.02. This is the appeal that we know is coming before the board. This is the dispensation of the appeal by Team Sports, Inc., LLC, to a letter of intent to award request for proposal. That's RFP number 17-003, comprehensive district-wide middle school and high school athletic uniforms and related apparel. And this is, colleagues, for possible action. Before us, I see both our CFO, Mr. Tom Zazinski, and our Director of Procurement and Grants, Ms. Andrea Sullivan. Thank you for being here. The floor is yours.
Thank you, President Taylor, Superintendent Davis, members of the board. For the record, Tom Zazinski, Chief Financial Officer, and again, our Director of Procurement and Contracts, Andrea Sullivan. So our process today is Andrea will walk you through the process of this bid and the discussion that centered around the appeal, and I believe the company representatives may address the board as well as part of this process. So we'll just jump right into this and have Andrea walk you through the process. So, Andrea?
And I will say for our colleagues is this is the dispensation of the appeal, so we make the decision here, and then I know the person who filed the appellate is present, and so if there are any questions, we can certainly ask, and we'll give you an opportunity to provide some comments as well after the presentation. Is that you, sir? You're nodding. You're looking at me and nodding. Is that you?
I was just smiling and nodding.
Oh, nodding. Thank you. That's very, very nice of you. So wherever you are when you're here, we'll give you an opportunity to provide some comments as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So for those of you who haven't been on the board when we've had an appeal, I think our last appeal was likely the appeal to the milk bid. So it's been a little while. But ultimately, statute provides that you get to make the final decision as to whether to uphold or deny an appeal. So I'll give you a brief overview of the process that we went through, and I'll make some points in my discussion. You do have several documents that were attached to the staff report, so hopefully you've had an opportunity to look through those. I know it's a lot to look through, but we felt like it was most important to provide all the information we could about it. So we'll go through the process on our end, then we'll invite the representatives from Team Sports Inc. to come up and give their perspective, and then we'll be happy to return for any questions that you might have after you've heard from Team Sports as well. So just a brief timeline. We published this RFP on March 29th. We issued an addendum answering all questions that were submitted on April 14th. It was publicly opened on April 20th, 2017. We held our first committee meeting on May 12th. This is where we discussed the proposals that were received. Each committee member discusses the pros and cons of each proposal from their perspective, and we identify finalists. And just for the record, I am a facilitator of the RFP. I am not an evaluator. I don't score. Holly Kirby from my office is also here. She's a buyer too. She co-facilitated this RFP with me, so she might also be able to answer some questions. So we received 5 proposals, and 4 were selected to give presentations. And those presentations were held on June 2nd, 2017. And after the presentations were over, the committee met, and they did all their final scoring, and they all have a score sheet where they do their scoring. The criteria that is published in the RFP is on that score sheet, and the weight assigned to that criteria is on that score sheet, and then they go and apportion points based upon what they read in their proposals and what they heard in presentations and what their experience with the vendor might be. After that, we go and tabulate, and Holly handled that. She took all of the score sheets, entered them into a spreadsheet. We double-checked and triple-checked to make sure there are no errors. We do keep those score sheets as part of the public record, so we always have them, and we follow the law as far as how long we hold on to those. And then from that, we issued our letter of intent to award, and we did that on June 9th. We received the notice of appeal on June 15th. And so that you know, the way the process works is that they have an appeal window that is opened, and it's a 6-day appeal window. And Team Sports Inc. did follow that process correctly, and they submitted their letter, their notice of appeal letter to my office, along with the surety required to hold it in a timely manner before the deadline had expired. So I think from my perspective, what's important is that the appeal process is spelled out in statute, and that's NRS 332.068. And if you go to that, part of it says, and I'm going to read it as a quote so I don't misstate it. A notice of protest must include a written statement setting forth with specificity the reasons the person filing the notice believes the applicable provisions of law were violated. So the important thing to keep in mind is this allows and it protects bidders and proposers from improprieties during the bidding process, from keeps government agencies honest if they violate the statute in any way. This is a proposer's opportunity to remedy that. What it isn't is a process by which to question committee members' scores. And it's not a process to disagree with who's being recommended, because anyone not being recommended, usually the company not being recommended, doesn't agree with that decision. But the criteria was set forth in the RFP. That was the criteria that was used. The weights were put to it. And the way it works is we score it, and whoever scores the highest, that's who's recommended. So we do have a multi-award situation, but it's not ever a situation where, oh, we take the first highest and the 4th highest. So although points are afforded and there is more subjectivity in an RFP process versus a hard bid where only low cost matters, there still is a very good process at which how we go to identify who's recommended for award. When we read the notice of appeal, it does make indications that they believe the law was violated. However, it never does call out a particular statute or section of statute that was violated or suggest exactly how we violated that statute. But they do outline 10 allegations that they've made against the district, and that's attachment D in your board item. Mm-hmm. And attachment F is a memo that I wrote, which is the purchasing department's written response to that. So if you go through that, you can see in attachment F, we copied verbatim each allegation and then responded to it. As outlined in the RFP document, we also have an internal process for reviewing appeals. Typically, that comes to me and I will review an appeal. However, since I was a co-facilitator myself of this particular RFP, I had Monica Shear-Howden from my office, who's also here tonight. She's the assistant purchasing supervisor. We had her review it. And the important piece here is I do believe in having a good process, and I don't think we're beyond mistakes. And so we do review that process, because if we see a flaw in the process, or if we think that statute has been violated in any way, we'll stop it right there, we'll cancel it, and we'll reissue it. Mm-hmm. And in fact, that happened in this particular case. We originally issued this RFP in November of 2016. And Team Sports Inc. actually made 2 allegations during that process. One was that we did not notify them properly that the RFP had been issued, and that was found to be invalid. We followed all statutory requirements, number 1, and number 2, went beyond that and emailed them directly the RFP document to the email address they provided. However, their second allegation was that other vendors got a hold of the RFP document before it was publicly issued. And they were able at that time to provide me evidence of that, which was an email they received from a vendor with the RFP document attached to it prior to the date the RFP was published. So when I saw that, I got on the phone with Mr. Rombardo and we talked through the issue, and we felt like we certainly didn't want the process to be tainted. We didn't know who shared it with the vendor, because in the beginning we solicited input from coaches and athletic directors and vice principals in charge of athletics as to the scope of work, because I'm not an athletics uniforms expert. So we went to the experts to make sure that we had everything included in that document that they would want included. And as a result, somewhere, somehow, somebody shared that document. And in total transparency, we weren't sure if it was a committee member, we weren't sure if it was a coach, we didn't know who it was, but we didn't want the process tainted. So we halted it right then and there. We canceled the RFP, and we assembled an entirely new committee for the second round because we didn't know who had provided it, and if it had been a committee member, we wanted to make sure not to have that committee member back on there. So just want you to know that that's why we do that internal review, is because if we find a flaw in the process, we want to know about it too, and we want to correct it to be fair to everybody. So Monica Shearhoughton in my office reviewed it, and on June 23rd, she issued a letter to Team Sports Inc. denying the appeal because she found no evidence that we had violated statute and found no evidence of a flaw in the process. As is their right, we went on and and Team Sports Inc. had their appeal heard by our appeals committee. And not in person, so don't let me mislead you. The appeals committee consisted of Tom Szynski, our CFO, Chris Reich, our Deputy General Chief Counsel, who is assigned to the purchasing department, and then Pete Etchart, our Chief Operating Officer. So they reviewed all of the documents pertinent to this solicitation, the RFP document, the addendum. They reviewed Team Sports Inc.'s letter of appeal. They reviewed the memo that I provided in response to that. They looked at all the score sheets from the committee members. Also, sort of an outside perspective to see if there's a flaw in the process or a violation of statute. They ultimately issued a letter denying the appeal as well, because they could not find any evidence that the process was flawed, that we'd violated statute, and they did not feel that the appellant had provided evidence that statute had been violated. So then, this is sort of the last step. So we do these 2 internal reviews, and we'll stop it if we find anything that we feel was done wrong. And then the final presentation is to you, and then you make the ultimate decision. So I'm not going to go through all 10 of the allegations. You have those, and I'm sure Team Sports Inc. will speak to them, but I did want to bring up a few points. One is, as you know, I've been in front of you several times for construction manager at risk and other RFPs where we have criteria and weight. In almost always, our past experience with companies is a criteria in one form or another that we consider. This is important because if we're going to award a contract, district-wide contract to a company or companies, we want to make sure that we've had good experience with them in the past. Now, whether that experience is good or bad, or whether the committee has had different experiences, all of that is fine. And we wouldn't, in fact, ask somebody who's had a bad experience with a proposer to recuse themselves such that only people with good experiences would remain on the committee. The way we went about selecting our committee has nothing to do with, well, do people have good experiences or bad experiences? It's about having the right representation on the committee so that it's broad and it's varied. And so the types of things we were looking for in committee members was, is there a Title I representative? You know, do we have someone from a Title I school? We were looking for an assistant principal or principal, someone in administration at a high school that oversees athletics. we were looking for a school-level athletic director. We wanted someone who could represent coaches, PE teachers, middle schools, high schools. And so that's what we were looking at when we assembled the committee that we had for this particular RFP. And some committee members represented more than one area. So we might have had a Title I assistant principal in charge of athletics. We also had a bookkeeper from a high school who deals with all of the invoicing and ordering and receiving, but she's also a coach for certain sports. So we did have people representing more than one area, but we felt like we had a very broad representation of areas to ensure all areas got heard. So in that, we never did say, oh, so-and-so's had a bad experience, we should recuse them from the committee, because we feel like everybody's experiences are important to this process, and hearing from all sides will help us make a better decision and do what's best for the district. And ultimately, having sat through those presentations, I can tell you from my perspective why I think this particular company scored lower than others. And if you look at the score sheet, we had a clear number one, and then we had almost a tie between 2 and 3. I think there was 1 point difference in the average score and 1 point if you ranked them in the ranking. And so that's why, because we did discuss a multi-award, because we wanted all types of uniforms represented, we wanted different kinds of brands represented, and a lot of times not one company for a district this size can be all things to all people. And so we did discuss multi-awarding it, and when that happens, what we look at is where does the scoring break? Do we only want one, and if we only get one, does it get us everything that we need? If not, then we go to number 2 and include number 2. But there was not a clear break between 2 and 3, which is ultimately why we recommended the top 3, and also why we didn't recommend the 4th, because there was a clear break in scores there. And for my part, my job is to represent the committee. I don't score. I simply, we put them into spreadsheets and we do the calculations, and what comes out, and then that's basically the voice of the committee, and that's what I'm here to represent tonight. But overall, why I think they scored lower than the others was 2 things. And one, there was discussion around the customer service issue. Some people had a great experience with them, and there were others who had had less than great experiences with the company. But we did go through every letter of recommendation that was presented, each person's perspective, and everybody's point of view as to what that customer service was. And there were certainly people represented on that committee who had positive experience with the company, and those voices were certainly heard. And then the second reason is that of the 4 companies, and remember, not only are we scoring their presentation, but it's in relation to everybody else's. So if you've got someone that comes in and knocks it out of the park on the presentation, they're likely going to score higher. And in this particular case, this appellant did not have a presentation prepared when they came into presentations. And an email was sent to all people who were invited for presentations, letting them know they had been selected, letting them know that they needed to go over their scope of work that was provided in a particular section of the RFP document, and then gave them specific bullet points and said, please make sure you include these items, but it's not limited to these items. So they can present whatever they want to present, but we wanted to make sure they all hit certain topics. And so when this presentation began, they showed a video clip, which was actually pretty interesting, and it was their staff and their operations and showing their place of business and what they do, what each person's role was. And then after that concluded, they asked us, okay, well, what do you want from us now? And I responded and said, well, this is your opportunity to present your proposal and convince the committee that we should select you based upon whatever your offerings are, whatever your service is, this is your opportunity to present to us. And so they did go through it appeared that they found the email we had sent them originally and kind of went through those bullet points briefly. But I think not having a prepared presentation is probably what hurt them the most in the final scoring, because comparatively speaking, there was a lot more information provided from the other presenters that day. So I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to add.
For the record, again, Tom Sosinski, Chief Financial Officer. I think just by Andrea's presentation, she is one that double dots the I's, double crosses the T's. The process is usually well thought out, well administered. When there's a hiccup, they step back, address it, And so, you know, from my perspective, having been on the appeal side of this, we didn't see any issues with the process whatsoever. So we're both here to answer any questions that we can.
And if you have any questions now, I'm happy to answer them, or if you prefer to hear from Team Sports Inc. before you ask any questions, we're happy to do that too.
I'd like to hear from Team Sports next. Let's see it.
I'll
Why don't
come up here
is there
and then-
representation? I know there's a representative here. Okay.
There's-
Well, so you were nodding in front. Okay. Please, if you would, gentlemen, we invite you to have a seat. Just introduce yourselves. We'll make sure you get your microphones on. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Okay, we'll get your mics on, then just introduce yourselves for the board, if you would, and JG is going to hand out the materials you have for the board.
My name is Harry Catanaugh. I'm known as Butch Catanaugh. Not that makes any difference to you, but I've been known that name for a whole lot of years. I won't reveal how many. And this is Carl Baker. I'm the managing partner of Team Sports Inc., and Carl is the minority partner. To let you know, and I'm not looking for sympathy, but to let you know how important this was to us today. My wife just got out of surgery, and Carl's daughter is in Ped ICU for a terrible accident yesterday, or on Sunday, I'm sorry. But we felt it important to be here to defend our position as a vendor in this community. And if you don't mind, I'm not a trained orator or a lawyer. I have no law degree or whatever, but I've written down several thoughts, and I would like to read them. I will try to address them. I'm a little disappointed that the entire board's not here, but because I would have liked to appeal to the balance and common sense that you as elected officials have in the community. And then after I'm done, Carl has some final comments. And Ms. Sullivan is accurate in most of the information that she gave you. And we actually solicited some legal advice, but we decided not to make this legal. We wanted it to make it more personal because of our local nature. So I'll start here, and then. So first of all, I'm actually very, very nervous, but it's important to overcome my nerves to defend my company. I've always lived by this motto that I'm not going to not attempt to do something just because it's hard. And it's not hard to defend my company, but it's hard to stand up here before you and plead for your support. It's difficult for me, like I said earlier, even though I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Nevada back in 1970. I did reveal that, didn't I? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not as polished as I would like to be appealing to you. I want to thank you for the opportunity to reconsider the decision made by the selection committee pertaining to the RFP. I know you have many important decisions to make, as you've already discussed here in this meeting, on many topics like overcrowding, building maintenance, student protection, teacher salaries, and more. My company, Team Sports Inc., was the only local company to interview, and we were denied the opportunity to continue selling athletic uniforms and equipment to the high school and middle school customers that we have been servicing for the past 18 years. I'll probably be redundant on this comment, but if our customers scored us so low, we wouldn't continue to do the amount of volume that we're doing in this county. I've given each of you a binder which includes information that I believe will support us being allowed to continue servicing our current WCSD customers. This microphone is very difficult. It's hard for me to read over the top of it. I hope that you will actually...
You can push it away if you want to a little bit from you. You don't have to be, if it makes it more comfortable for you. Well, not when you turn it off. You just turned it off.
So you can still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay, thank you. I hope you'll actually look at the documentation in your binder as I guide you through. Then I hope you'll take the time to deliberate, but it sounds like that might not happen if you have to make a decision today. I think that probably bodes against us somewhat without being able to delve into the information. And I hope you come to the conclusion that Team Sports Inc. is a company worthy of doing business with the Washoe County School District. As Ms. Sullivan stated during our oral presentation, we presented a video of our operation showcasing our local staff. And I think if you've been witness to this presentation, I'm confident you would also wonder why we weren't included as one of the awarded vendors. When we were notified that we had not been selected, we felt we had to defend our relationship with our Washoe County school customers and use the appeal process allowed. We did not expect our appeal to be granted by the first situation with Ms. Sullivan or her staff. We did not expect that. And we actually asked to bypass the second step and come and appeal to you. You're the voice of reason and balance, like I said before. So far, the process has been rubber stamped, and I get it, okay? I understand. You have to support your employees. You have to support their decisions. But like I said, I'm once again appealing to you as citizens here, not employees of the Washoe County School District, to hear our appeal. And just so you know, we're not asking to dissolve the RFP like it was the first time. The facts were presented that when it was originally initiated that we were notified, we asked for proof that we were on the email list. We never got that email. Therefore, we researched farther. That's why it got submitted a second time. And I have to question whether or not, because we caused that to happen, was there a little bit of bias, in us as a company. It's very important to us to continue to do business. This is our livelihood. All we want to do is be added. It was provided, I believe, in the last communication about the school board meeting, that one of the options would be to just include the top 4. That's all we're asking to do. We're asking to continue to do business. The appeal process was difficult for us since it required a bond. We could not get an accurate description of what that bond was. We're not a construction company. So we had we were given 6 days, of which 2 of those were a weekend. And we contacted our insurance company. Our insurance company contacted the administrative office, and they couldn't quite give, and we have a statement from our insurance agent, which is tab bond in the binder that I gave you. It's a statement from our insurance agent. They couldn't tell us what kind it was. Because they couldn't do that, our insurance company couldn't secure a bond in that short period of time. We were forced to then do a cashier's check of $250,000. Was that difficult for us financially? Very. We are a small company. Was it necessary to display our position? Absolutely. So we had to dig into our emergency fund. We have a pretty large payroll. I employ 30 people, and we had to dip into that in order to send the cashier's check in order to make the appeal process. If you'll turn to the local tab, I'm actually trying to play the local card. I don't think you should be awarded just because you're local. I get that. You don't get to be just because you're local. But we contend that we offer the same level of customer service, same level of pricing, same incentives as the 3 other companies. Why would the district want to send their money and their parents' money to California, Texas, or Wisconsin, where the 3 awarded companies are from? Each of those companies might have 1 person who lives in our community. We have 30 Nevada employees. They all work hard to service our customer base. Our employees pay taxes, they shop locally, they worship locally, they coach, they volunteer locally. My son and daughter are Nevada natives, my daughter a Nevada graduate. My grandchildren attend schools in Washoe County. I'm raising one of them. We love Damani Ranch High School. They do a great job with him, a fantastic job with him. You'll see our sponsor banners in the area at multiple youth sports events. We invest in Nevada, and we invest locally. I am not here to discredit any of the successful proposers, but I'd like to quickly share a little bit of information about each of them I think you might find useful and interesting. BSN, a huge national brand owned by a powerful investment firm. Investment firms they demand a high return on investment. BSN's strategy is to buy the business. They offer big rebates to get their foot in the door. Then once their foot is in the door, you get overcharged. We have one business back from BSN in different areas because of their practices. There's even one school in Washoe County that has forbidden them from selling to them anymore, and yet they've been awarded as a vendor here in the county. They also purchase dealers, people who are tired or in distress. They rob salespeople from dealers like ours. The very first person that they tried to hire away in northern Nevada was the gentleman on my right because of his success in the area. They tried to buy the territory. He's tied to Team Sports Inc. He knows what he can accomplish. After they couldn't get him, they tried to buy Team Sports Inc. They took me to lunch. They made me an offer. I researched into them. That was not a good offer. It was not going to be good for my employees because they were going to get rid of all of them because they don't do their own personal decoration. It was not a good decision. East Bay, another well-known national brand. I'll bet all of you in here have ordered from their catalog at one time or another. Bought a pair of shoes, maybe a warm-up jacket, okay? They're tied very strongly with Nike. And so with the invent of digital ordering and online ordering, Nike encouraged East Bay, why don't you get into the team business and sell our custom uniforms? It's an easy thing. So they hired a sales staff, and they went out and did that. That's not their forte. Their forte is catalog. Their forte is product selection. You know, they sell Nike shoes that no one else can get. Nike makes shoes especially for them. Their salespeople must maintain high profit margins. Nike will give them incentives to pass on to the schools. The interesting thing is their local rep in the area is a former employee of the company that finished #1. He left them because he was unhappy with his pay compensation. We've competed against him for 18 years, this particular salesperson. A great guy, a good salesman. The #1 selection was Athletics Unlimited, another out-of-state company. They have a couple of all-school deals here in Washoe County. There's definitely a preference to grade them high so that they continue to be selected as a preferred vendor and keep those all-school deals going. We respect them as another independent dealer. They actually belong to the same buying group that we do. It's called Sports Inc. It's 600 of the top sporting good companies in the country. There's over 1,000 sales reps, all under individual privately owned companies. They have the same, we have these same opportunities through our buying group as they do. They were rated very strong in vendor selection. We were not rated as strong in vendor selection, yet we have access to every vendor that they have. And if you look at vendor information, you'll see where we put all of the vendors we have, the incentives that are offered, the discounts that are offered. Yet Athletics Unlimited, that was voted #1, cannot sell Nike, Team Sports Inc. cannot sell Under Armour custom uniforms, Team Sports Inc. and cannot sell Schutt protective equipment, Team Sports Inc. can. 3 key vendors that school programs are going to want. Yet they're rated #1. They have all school deals in Washoe County. So the scorecards, Ms. Sullivan referred to the scorecards. If you look at the score sheets, yes, our whole contention with appealing this process is we offer all of the same benefits, all of the same discounts, all of the same incentives We gave you a list of references at the back of the binder from Washoe County administrators, athletic directors, coaches, bookkeepers who love our services, otherwise they wouldn't continue to keep purchasing from us. I'm a believer that if you don't earn your business, like if I go somewhere and they treat me poorly, I don't go back. So why would schools continue to do business with us? Because we do a great job. So I know Ms. Sullivan talked about they tried to, they just picked certain people. There was no criteria to pick them. Of the committee, and all respect to them and thanks to them for their time and effort, but there were, I think, 2 people on the committee who had relationships with us. One, I believe, was a bookkeeper and a coach, and one was a former head coach who's no longer coaching in the district. 3 people had no customer service relationships with us, yet those 3 people pretty much decided our fate. In our presentation, and I hope Ms. Sullivan remembers this, she says she's a facilitator. At the end of our presentation, she scolded Mr. Baker. That's influence on the committee. No, she doesn't vote. She doesn't make comment, but she scolded him. You need to get along with administrators better. His response was, I'm going to stick up for my customer, which are the coaches. To me, I kind of compare that to a seasoned attorney who asks a question that he knows is going to be objected and sustained by the judge, but the jury still heard the question. So customer service, we were rated poorly by 3 of the members. Not from our customer base, and I know you can't go and say, okay, I want you to, you like Team Sports Inc. and you like Athletics Unlimited and you like BSN and whatever, but it's, our customer service is, we've built our business on customer service. All of our letters of reference, they all refer to that. I have letters of reference from schools in California that I do business with. They constantly compliment us on quick response, quick turnaround times on art, on timely delivery, fix any mistakes that you make without excuses. Our customer service is beyond reproach. Our expertise. If you look at the expertise, oh, I'm sorry, I wanted to address one thing. Under the addendum, in the question and answer portion of the RFP, one of the awarded vendors even tells the district, we can't supply you with what you're asking, okay? We can't give you a monthly analysis. We can only do it yearly. We made it real clear that we could give you a daily analysis if you wanted to, a weekly, a monthly, a quarterly, every 6 months, annually, whatever you wanted. Our office staff would bend over backwards to get you the information you want. I feel we have more expertise and knowledge in this industry than any other of the representatives in the area. 2 of the competing companies have sales representatives previously employed by another vendor. Sales representatives, they jump around. We have had the same representation in this area for 18 years. The same representation. We don't have people coming and going, trying to find a higher paying job or more incentives. Our technical expertise, if you look under expertise, we got rated poorly on technical expertise. If you look at the second page in there, our e-commerce provider is called Order My Gear. That's where we build web stores. All the 4 companies, the 3 awarded and us, we all offer web stores. We were number 2 in the state of Nevada. You can see our 2016 volume in web stores. That's because we're experts at creating the store, getting the customer the right information so that they can solicit the product in the store. I've also included in your binders, and I don't know if you'll take the time to look at this, under the financial tab, I've listed all of the business we've done with Washoe County Schools in 2016, which was $350,000. That does not include any ancillary business from booster clubs or stuff like that because they love doing business with us. Then I provided you with 6 months of 2017, and I have a total, which is just under $108,000. And then I gave you a total of business that we have on our books that the due dates are not there yet. We have the analysis of how much they're going to be, and that's $68,000. That would be more, except we have testimony from coaches. Their athletic directors have told them, you might hold off on ordering from Team Sports Inc. because you might not be able to buy from them anymore. That's a knife to my heart. As hard as we've worked to develop this company, and somebody denies us the opportunity to sell. To me, I kind of relay it, well, I'm sorry, no. So anyway, as previously stated, the only result that we are looking for is to be included in the preferred vendor list. We spent the last 18 years working hard to grow this business, and I want to thank you. Now I'm going to have Carl comment very quickly.
Thank you guys for taking your volunteer time to hear from us. We definitely appreciate it. I might be a little shaky. Daughter's in ICU, had an accident over the weekend, so working through that. I'm going to try to read this slowly, but these words are precise, okay? And if you pick these words apart, there's a lot here, okay? I'm not asking you to award Team Sports Inc. a contract. In fact, the RFP does not award anyone a contract. None of the 3 companies who receive the award are obligated to provide services in any amount, and none of them are entitled to compensation in any set amount. All the RFP did was to create a pre-approved pool of providers. All I'm asking the board to do is to allow Team Sports Inc. to be part of that pool, to allow us the opportunity to continue providing the service, attention, and our district customers and this community have to come to expect over the last 18 years. We have raised questions about the evaluation process, NRS 332.800, which expressly precludes an evaluator from being interested, directly or indirectly, in any contract awarded by a governing body. The evaluators used in this process all have a direct interest through their schools in their selection and approval of the pool providers. Even if the evaluators did their best to remain neutral, the manner in which the review was conducted and the existence of the pre-existing relationships with the bidders creates the appearance of impropriety. The only way to avoid such appearance of impropriety is to include all responsible bidders in the pre-approved pool providers. Team Sports Inc. should be one of the providers in the pre-approved pool. There has been no determination that Team Sports Inc. bid was non-responsive or that Team Sports Inc. is not responsible. Our 18-year track record in the community and the stacks of customer recommendations will prove to the contrary. With that said, Butch kind of hit on this a little bit. We had one customer on that committee, okay? That was our customer. The other 4 had already been doing business with Athletics Unlimited. Why I say that? Because Joyce Cathy, who is a sales representative, is the only current one left at Athletics Unlimited. John England just recently left Athletics Unlimited, got bought by East Bay. He is now a sales rep for East Bay, okay? Tyson most recently left Athletics Unlimited, went to work for BSN, okay? So all other 3 salespersons that made a pitch besides me were Athletics Unlimited customers, okay? So they had 4 people on their side, 4 people that were for them. We had 1. Another aspect that I wanted to make sure you guys are aware of is This is not the district's money that's being spent here. Okay? This is the parents' money. So the stuff that we're talking about buying is all provided by the parents' money. They put in their money for the spirit packs to the coach turns it into the school and puts it into the school account. The kids and the coach go fundraise for their uniforms. Nothing of this that we're talking about now, right now, is provided by the school district. This is all money that's provided by the parents. Okay? This stack of papers right here, okay, is the voice of Washoe County. The 4 committee members that were Athletics Unlimited customers and not ours shouldn't speak for the rest of these people. Okay? I'm going to read you one of them. You guys can read all of them, okay? These are principals. Like he said, these are athletic directors. If we were to put any one of these people, these 50 people, on the committee and replace them with the other 4, Athletics Unlimited would be here appealing to you right now. I think all 4 companies should be included in the approved vendors list. That's all this is. This is not a contract. This is just picking pre-approved vendors that the schools can use. And to be honest with you, I don't know if all 4 of us can service the district because the district hasn't been buying all of their products from us 4. They've been buying them from the internet and all other services that are out there in the free market. So you're talking about limiting it to us 4 only? Hey, we'll hire some people to step up and try to service that well. We have the most sales staff of all these guys that are here, that's here locally already. I'm going to read you an excerpt from one of the principals. Not having the option to use Team Sports Inc. for Galena High School will be a hardship to our athletic program and the school. Our relationship with each other is strong and meets our needs. Furthermore, having a local company serve Washoe County School District is a plus for our community. Building and having support from our local businesses is a plus for our establishment. I'm going to hit on that local card like Butch did a little bit here. We donate way more money than the rest of all 3 of those companies put together back into our community. Way more. With our youth programs that we donate to the high schools that all ask us for money, we donate more than all 3 of them put together. Butch already said this, we have 30 families that work for us, okay, that go to schools and participate in the sports here. My wife was a teacher for 5 years and ran the early head child education program at HUG. She started that at HUG, at Wooster, and all that kind of stuff. She since then decided to stay home to take care of our children. And to up the local card just a little bit more. Okay?
I'm going to ask you if you would.
One second, 1 minute, I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
Right here, I would have had her here today. Unfortunately, you know my circumstances. My wife and my kids are at the hospital. I was going to have my wife here stand up with this little girl right here, okay? This is Madison. Madison belongs to Washoe County. She still does. She's in my care. We're going through the court system right now. Somebody abandoned her at the hospital to adopt her, okay? I'm local. I'm adopting a little girl from our Washoe County. That's what local and community means. All of us together. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks to both of you for being here with very difficult personal circumstances going on in your own lives. Our thoughts and prayers will certainly be with them. And thank you. As we conclude, I gave you as much time as we could. You went longer than the others. I didn't want to cheat you at all. But I think we need to just begin to deliberate and see if there are any questions that any of my colleagues have for these two gentlemen. And then ask... Certainly, I see Ms. Sullivan getting back. Any questions? We can always ask questions again of them because I don't think they're walking out right now, guys. So if we have any other questions, we'll ask them. And again, thanks to both of you for being here. We know you have very, very difficult personal situations going on. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you for the prayers. That's the most important thing here.
Okay, you're back here to the board table then. Questions, we'll ask the staff, please, if you wouldn't mind returning. Questions? I'm looking at you, Trustee Mayor, if you turn your mic on, sir. Thank you.
I had a question about a remark that he just made. None of the athletic equipment and stuff is sponsored by the school district. It's all parents.
So what I can say is we've had deep discussions about this. What happens is the parents do pay a lot of this, but it is deposited into school accounts and paid for by out-of-school accounts. So therefore, once you start putting money into the school coffers, we have to treat it like public money.
And that's supported by the law, so that's important to point. When these funds get blended together, they're public funds at that point.
So once the parents collect it, buy a car wash or whatever, and give it to the school, it's that school's public money.
Well, I think in this case, mostly it's parents writing a check to the school for uniforms, but they write it to the school, not to a particular vendor. And so when the district is expending money out of their funds, it has to be treated as public funds.
So that's why we see a lot of disparity between uniforms and stuff between the high schools that we have here, is because there's no bounds or anything. And what happens if a kid, his parents just don't help, they don't buy the spirit package or whatever? What happens to that poor little kid?
So I'll step in. So the money that we're talking about being deposited, gets deposited specifically into the student activity funds. Once it's deposited into the student activity funds, those are property of the school district. So as Andrea pointed out, we have to follow that process. The district will not let schools have unsafe equipment, so we will step in and purchase safety equipment, football pads, football helmets when we need to. There's a lot of donations and charities that take place that will step in and assist schools that may not be able to raise the money that other schools do. So one way or the other, we work to make sure that all school students are afforded what they need in terms of what their participation in sports require.
Now, for example, Max Sports is a company that puts scoreboards on there and everything. And you can go on that line, and if I want a football jersey like Sparks High has, I can order it from them, and the district has no control over
right.
it.
That individual as a citizen is making that purchase, so we don't have any involvement in that transaction.
And none of the schools use them to purchase anything.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that company. I don't know. But if they want to go as a citizen or a booster club as a separate entity can raise money and buy things directly. But if they donate the money to the schools and it goes into school funds and it's treated like public funds.
Okay, so like, let's say Worcester wants to buy a spirit package. They get all their parents together and say, hey, Max Sports has this spirit package, and then they can buy it from them.
Again, if the money's collected and it's kept outside of the district through a booster club, we don't control the booster club. But if the money's collected through the parents and deposited into school activity funds, then we have to follow state NRS in terms of our purchasing process for bidding, because some of these uniforms can be in excess of $100,000. It's a significant purchase for each of our schools, especially our high schools.
That's what I'm talking about. When Gorman comes up here to play us, it's like the Dallas Cowboys have arrived to town. So they're private schools,
Correct.
So they can spend whatever they want wherever it falls.
I believe that would be an accurate statement.
Thank you, Trustee Mayor. Trustee Holland?
I have a question for Andrea and for Neil. Is evidence of statutory violation the only reason to change the bid or make any adjustment?
I'll defer to Neil a little bit on that. I will tell you, if you go and look at that portion of the statute, it tells them that they have to file a letter, they have to provide the surety if it's required, and they have to point out, it is a requirement that they point out with specificity the portion of the statute that was violated.
I think Andrew is correct. That's what it says. You have to show that the process was flawed in some way, legally flawed.
That's different, though. Having a requirement in statute that you have to point out a statutory violation is different from our authority to grant an appeal on some other basis than a statutory violation. I mean, and I'm not a lawyer, but the fact that they have to provide that evidence, I don't know what our flexibility is in our authority to grant the appeal.
Well, I think, I think what the authority is to grant the appeal is based on specific reasons that the person is filing the appeal that the law was violated. That's what you have to look at. I mean, that's what the statute says. So it can't be, because you have to look at it from different angles, right? So it can't just be, hey, we like these guys better. There's also 3 other vendors out here who met the RFP, who did receive the highest grades and or scores. And from their perspective, they did what they were supposed to do. From the committee's perspective, they did what they were supposed to do. So to add a 4th vendor in there, you're now diluting their share of the market that they've earned of being a pre-approved. So they have now a reverse argument. And so you have to base your decision on not just arbitrary and capricious, which I know I say all the time, but you can't just base it on how you feel. You have to base it on, here's the reason, here's the legal reason. And I will point out that 332.800 does not apply to this situation. 332.800, I didn't know that was coming up because it wasn't in their letter, but I did read the statute as we were sitting here. And the statute is clear that that's members of the governing body, so that would be you all cannot participate in the process because you're members of the governing body. Governing body is defined by statute as basically the same as a public body, which is a voting body. This wasn't, the RFP process wasn't the governing body for this case. So you would be the governing body. So that statute doesn't apply.
So let me just go back to what you're saying then. You're saying that because the NRS requires that there was something that was done inappropriately legally.
Mm-hmm.
And if for an example, if we say, hey, you know what, we think the local thing is valid, whatever the case may be, schools are counting on them, whatever the deal is, they made quite a few arguments. If any of us were compelled to say, you know what, we think that's valid, then what that would do is expose us to any of the other 3 vendors saying that that was a violation then, so to speak.
It's my job to defend you to the best of my ability, but I would be concerned of that exposure. I could always, if you were to create a record, I could always argue that record in front of a judge.
Mm-hmm.
But that does create an issue.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Trustee Hall, I jumped in and you were still asking questions. Yeah.
I had a couple other questions. In several places in the very thorough and excellent response to the concerns that you had prepared, Andrea, in several places you mentioned that you had decided ahead of time to award to 3 vendors. How was that decision made, and was that specified in the bid?
So what I stated is that we would award to a maximum of 3. So what we were open to is multi-awarding to make sure that all of the schools had enough choice to cover their bases, but not so much choice that there wasn't actually competition. And so we were ready to award to 1 or 2 if that's what seemed in the best interest of the district, but we didn't want to award to more than 3 because we wanted there to be some level of competition. What was spelled out in the RFP is that we reserved the right to award, to multi-award. So we reserved that right. We did not specify how many because it could have been 1, it could have been 2, could have been 3. But we wanted to ensure the validity of the process, meaning that there was competition, that we met our burden of competition, and that we then best represented the interests of the districts and the district and the taxpayers.
More questions, Trustee Holland? I hear your wheels from over here.
Wheels are turning, but I'll defer.
Trustee Kelly?
Yeah, Andrea, I had on the criteria, you know, I believe that local vendors, if they've earned the right to do business, they should be rewarded or have points given to them or assigned to them or awarded to them based on past experience. And in the criteria, there really isn't anything in the criteria that says local vendors get so many points, or for every year that they've done business with the school district, they get so many points. And I could have sworn that that was something that in the past there was a criteria for that. So am I wrong on that? And if there's no criteria for past experience or local experience, why wouldn't that be a criteria that you'd want to use for any kind of bids in addition
So
to this one?
that's actually a very good question. You're not totally mistaken. NRS 338 provides for local preference, so that's our construction bidding. So both in the construction manager at risk process that we use, we are required to assign 5 points for local preference. But there is actually a process by which they have to go through and get certified by the state to get that preference. It's not just anybody who happens to have a local company. There is a process, there's certain standards they have to meet to get the certificate of eligibility. Then after that, they have to sign an affidavit promising to do certain things as far as employing local people and having their equipment be local and all of this. So this is in NRS 338 with respects to public works projects. NRS 332 does not afford preference for local companies. So when we're doing an RFP under NRS 332, you will not see points in the criteria for local preference. And there's so many different definitions of local preference that anyone and everyone could argue, and that's why, at least in the public works, there's a specific process that they go through. They apply to the state, they must meet certain criteria, and the state gives them a certificate of eligibility. We don't determine whether they're local or not. They have to provide that certificate to us in every bid and every CMAR proposal as evidence that they are to receive that preference.
So yeah, it might be too late for this one, but I think that might be a good discussion that the board can have going forward. Is it possible to somehow, for all of our bids, or for all the RFPs that we do, not just for construction and public works, but for all of them, is there some way that we can include a certificate, local, something like that? So many points, because I mean that's something that I like to see is keeping local whenever possible. But if there's a framework involved, and if there's some legal things that are involved to make that legit, I think that's something that I'd want to chat about, at least in the future.
Thank you, Trustee Kelly.
Mr.
Rombardo.
Yeah, I want to point out also under the conflict of interest that's being alleged under 281A, it doesn't matter what somebody comes with their own preconceived notions of. It doesn't. All of us come here with those. What it is, it has to be an actual conflict, such as this is my brother or my sister, or I've lived next to them for, well, even if I live next to them for 20 years, that doesn't matter. It has to be a true legal conflict. So I just want to point that out. That also doesn't hurt the process just because 4 happen to work with the other company and 1 happened to work with the appellant. That's not a legal conflict of interest, which is what's required, just to clarify the record. And I know that might have something to do with the comment about administration, alleged comment that you made. I don't know. So, but I would just point out that's not a conflict of interest under the law.
I didn't catch your last name, Katanic.
It's Kavanaugh, but that's fine. I mean, it's.
We're gonna, we're gonna. Did you want to address that specifically? I mean, I just wanted to
ask a question.
Would you can please approach? And I'm going to ask you if you would just keep your response kind of tight, just because. Is that all right? Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
I opened my comments by saying we did not want to make this legal. We actually talked to an attorney who said if we were to make it legal, they would have to cancel the RFP and reissue it, which costs the district a lot of money, and because you're paying your legal staff to reissue it. We chose not to do that. And I would ask Mr. Rombardo, is it where I'm not a lawyer, obviously, and where it says the evaluator may not, be, our contention was that the athletic director who was on the committee, who had an all-school deal, rated the number 1. If you look at the scorecards, he rated them all the way across at the top score, and we were at the bottom because he had a personal conflict with us. So we don't want to make it legal. We're trying to appeal, like I said, to the balance, and of the school board. And it's frustrating to me to think that their hands are tied because we chose not to make this legal.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And we were trying to, because she put it in her staff report saying, add Team Sports Inc. But if he's saying, kind of what he's saying, that from a legal standpoint, correct me if I'm wrong, that you guys aren't allowed to do that? Is that what you're saying?
I don't, if you would, please, sir.
I don't think you have, I don't think this board has legal grounds to add Teams Inc. to the RFP. No.
Okay, I have two more questions then. Can you ask him if he was contacted by Mike?
No, at this point,
Well,
we just want.
what I want to say is, can we table this, and can we bring counsel then?
No, at this point, let's the board decide what action is that we think we want to take, and that's best, and then it would be really up to, then the board could decide to delay if they so chooses.
Okay.
And then at that point, then you have to decide what next steps in the best interest for your organization, if you don't mind.
No, absolutely, because what Butch said is we were going to bring counsel, and we didn't want to do that,
Yeah, I
based on
understand
what he said and what our counsel told us, that this RFP would have to go away and they would have to go back to the drawing board because there's so many errors in it.
Yeah, I appreciate
Okay.
that. Thank you. Any other questions from the table? Mr. Rombardo, you have your mic on. You want to?
If I may address 332-800 subsection 2, it says an evaluator may not be interested directly or indirectly in any contract awarded by such governing body or its authorized representative. Just to make it easy, if I may use examples, that would be, let's say Andrea's husband owns the company. That would be directly. Indirectly would be something within the third degree of consanguinity. So Andrea's possible uncle would be the third degree of consanguinity. That would be indirectly. Or indirectly, which would be, unfortunately, we have to create these laws for this exact reason, would be Andrea has some agreement, and again, or let's not use Andrea in this example, some person has some backhanded agreement that says, you know, you provide all these uniforms for the school, and don't forget my family needs clothes too. That would be an indirect contract. So.
At this point, we just want to have the conversation, because he was just lending some clarity to something that was there. That was not meant to that was just legal clarification. So if you, I understand that, and that we'll just have to take up if we get to that point. Okay. Because otherwise, we can go back and forth all night, and we'll never have any resolution one way or the other. And again, it's always the board. The boards can always decide we want to table this and wait. That's always out there. Okay, that's always out there. Thank you. Yeah, Trustee Holland.
While my wheels were turning, I forgot, and President Taylor did extend our sympathies, but I just wanted to personally extend my sympathies to you. I've had a kid in the ICU and surgery, and I want to tell you how much we care and that we're very sympathetic. Do we have, if I may, Andrea, do we have evidence of a track record of non-performance by any of the proposers who were in the Final Four?
So what we look at is their proposals, their presentations, and the committee members' experiences dealing with these companies. And I will say that we had multiple people on the committee, not just one who'd had experience with this company, and multiple who had good experience as well. So as we have the discussions that occurred during the committee meetings, but I don't have written evidence for you for either of those. Everybody, though, submitted letters of recommendations. So they all had letters of recommendations that were looked at and considered. And we also, they provide references, and we went out and sent out the same questionnaire to all the references provided in everybody's RFPs for all of the finalists, and we got those back, and those were provided to the evaluator. So as far as, I guess that would be the written portion, is the letters of recommendation provided by the proposers, and they all did provide some, and then the references that we collected in the form of a written questionnaire that we sent the same one out to all references, and then they were all provided to the committee members.
But those were all initiated by the proposers, providing a reference. I'm not going to give you somebody that, I had a bad experience.
So that is the process, is to ask them to provide references, and then we solicit from those references. I will tell you, though, in my experience, I've had plenty of references on solicitations come back, not perfect, and maybe not what because they are confidential during this process from the vendor. So they provide the reference names and contact information. We contact the references, provide them the written form, and they provide it back to us. And I've had a number of occasions where maybe those references didn't come back the way the vendor might have expected them to.
Okay, and so we didn't have, as you said, you don't have any evidence of non-performance in this process?
No.
Okay.
You have another question?
No, go.
Okay, Mike, so is this a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year? How does this, what's the length or?
We'll check. I'm sorry, we have so many
Yes.
going concurrently. I don't want to misspeak.
Okay.
She's got the document right there.
So 1 year with 3 optional 1-year renewal terms.
So it's a 1-year term with 3 optional 1-year renewals.
So what does that mean in terms of the optional?
That at the end of each year, we as a district make a determination. So we send out evaluations to end users who use them and get evaluations back to make sure that the people utilizing these vendors are still happy and would recommend that we renew. And then if the district is interested in renewing, we reach out to the vendor or vendors to see if they're interested in renewing. And if they're interested in renewing and we're interested in renewing, then we have that option. If we've had a bad experience, or if the vendor, for example, and if I have a bid where it was a low bid and the bidder can't hold their pricing anymore, and they want to raise their price by 15%, then we may opt not to renew, or they may opt not to renew. So it is optional. It has to be agreed to by both parties, but those opportunities do exist.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from the table? Trustee Holland?
I just wanted to make some comments. This is very troubling. I think it's different, substantively different from, and I think we would all agree it's substantively different from a contract in which there's a promise for us to provide a certain number of dollars to a single vendor. And I think that the statute and the requirement for evidence of a statutory violation is more relevant and geared toward that kind of a situation. I am concerned about the nature of our multiple award announcement that didn't specify 3 or up to 3, which had been your intention, but was not listed. And I also share the concern about the local families that are affected by this business. All that being said, I also respect the guidance from our legal counsel that we don't have the authority to award the appeal in the absence of evidence that there is a violation of statute. I just don't see how our hands are not tied by that. So I just wanted to share where I am at this point. I'm troubled. I'm troubled by this.
If I may, in any bid situation, we never give a guarantee of dollars. Whether it's a hard bid or an RFP, we never give a guarantee of dollars. When it's a single award, they are guaranteed that they will get our business. And in this particular situation, although there is not a guarantee to any one vendor, we are guaranteeing that the business from the district go to those vendors as long if it's being paid for out of district funds. So it's the same situation. And there are many examples where we do multi-award for various reasons. Charter bus services is one. We can't always guarantee that one company will have buses available. And so we have to look at, if we select one and only one, which I would say we do more often than the multi-award, will that serve the needs of the district? And we didn't feel that it would in this particular case. So.
Trustee Kelly?
I'm troubled about this too. I think probably the thing that troubles me the most is that we have 3 alternatives here. The Board of Trustees has the following alternatives, but it looks like number 2 and 3 of upholding the appeal. If we can't do those, then I'm leaning towards tabling this decision, because I'd want to have alternatives that we know are sound alternatives that the board can choose from. And so that's kind of the thing that's troubling me. Yeah.
Under alternatives on staff report, right, Trustee Kelly? And perhaps Mr. Rombardo can clarify what our options really are from a legal standpoint. I mean, I share the similar concerns as really that were mentioned. And also looking at legally, are our hands actually tied? So some clarity on that would be helpful at this point for me.
Yeah, I think your options are two. Number three, you can't do. I don't see how you can direct staff to award the RFP to the fourth highest ranking competitive proposal. It's, you've made a decision, now you're getting into the substantive. What's your reason for doing that? That would be arbitrary and capricious by definition. You need to have some legal reason to do that. However, you can uphold the appeal and direct staff to reissue the RFP with different specifications. If you choose to do that, you have to lay grounds on why you do that and what you think the legal issue was. I think Trustee Holland at least mentioned something that might be an issue. That would be up to the board to vet and decide. Or you can do number one, deny the appeal and staff moves forward. And I don't mean to be flip or rude, and I'm a supporter of local people too, and they can do what they want legally afterwards. I don't recommend, however, holding this in limbo for 2 weeks, and I would just say that as a practical perspective and a legal perspective, why would you give somebody a second shot at an appeal? That would be, I can't recommend that as a legal, as your counsel. So it's one or two in my mind. You can do three. That is an option. Three, not this three, I'm apologizing, tabling this and continuing it for 2 weeks. I don't think that puts us in the best position, because I think let me explain that. I think it leaves us exposed from the other three vendors who are ready to move forward. So I think we need to make a decision. That would be my recommendation.
Yes, Trustee Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Rombardo.
How much time, like football and everything, they have to be wearing uniforms, cheerleader and everything? What, are they in limbo and have to wear last year's or what?
So timing is certainly an issue, and it's in fact why we originally issued this in November, to be honest, was to have this awarded and have all of the uniforms ordered under these new contracts for the upcoming sports year. We have told schools, though, because the delay by having to reissue it in the first place, that to follow their normal processes until this has been awarded. We have not asked them to wait. For example, I know cross-country and football happen early in the season. We have not asked them to wait to order. We've had some people reach out because the public recommendation was made saying, hey, what does this mean? Is this who we have to award to? And we have simply told them there has not been an award to this, and until that time to continue doing business the way they've been doing it. And then once the award is made, then from that point forward, any orders going on for the school would be through one of the three awarded vendors if that's what's ultimately awarded.
And if, let's say, that they don't like the three, they don't like these guys either, can they do the business with like Max Sports or these online people with their
No.
spirit money? They cannot do
So
that.
what they do with their booster money is up to the booster club or the PTAs or whatever they have that is separate from the district. But if they're buying athletic apparel with district funds, they will be required to buy from one of the awarded vendors.
So they can't go to online vendor and order.
They should not be doing that once this is awarded.
But what if it's in limbo?
I've told them to continue doing what they've been doing to get their
Past
uniforms.
Right.
So however they were procuring their uniforms before we put a district-wide contract in place, I've suggested that they continue to do that until an award is made by the board. And once an award is made by the board, then they would be ordering from one of the awarded vendors.
Now, through the NIAA, they have entirely different vendors, but it's just for their sponsored events, right?
I don't know how to answer that because I'm not familiar enough with with how they order uniforms. All I can say is if district funds are being utilized to buy uniforms, they would be utilized with one of the awarded vendors.
So this only pertains to uniforms. It's not spirit shirts
It
or
is.
anything
It is
like that?
uniforms and related apparel is the title of it. They can most certainly buy those spirit packs through these vendors where they order their uniforms.
Okay, because like you go to the track meet and down in Vegas and the state track meet, they got a vendor right there that does it right on the spot. And so if Johnny wins the shot put, he goes over and they add his name and number and what place he got. But that's NIA. That doesn't have anything to do with, like, if one of these tournaments held in Washoe County, NIA can still do that.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that. So NIA is separate from the Washoe County. It's separate from all 17 county school districts, and they facilitate their own expenses. So they would write the check. They would sponsor that vendor. So that wouldn't come through our purchasing process.
And the vendor pays a fee for the booth.
Probably working through the NIA, I think that would be accurate.
Trustee Holland, thank you. Trustee Mayor, you good? Okay.
So that raises another question for me. This is the first time we've done a contract for this?
This is the first time we've done a district-wide contract.
And what
Individual
prompted
schools have done contracts for this. We sort of look over what we're using, what we're doing in the district, where we're expending the funds. I don't always have exposure to what activity funds, thank you, are being used for, because they have their own checks. If it comes to my attention that schools are expending above the statutory threshold with student activity funds, then that's when I step in and get involved, and that's what happened in this case.
That's what happened in this case, that schools were overexpending their student activity funds on uniforms?
Well, in a review of the student activity funds, we found that they were exceeding the thresholds that we needed to be in compliance with NRS, so we needed to step in and make sure that we maintain that compliance for them.
Okay, so that's what triggered you wanting to do a district-wide contract. But in the absence of a district-wide contract, schools were just doing this themselves?
Right. So it's us making sure we keep them compliant. So yes.
I actually thought that same thing, like, okay, so what prompted it? And I understand, because at a certain level, NRS kicks in. And if the district isn't involved, then schools aren't paying attention to NRS, and
correct.
You thought they were just trying to buy a uniform and get out there and do what they need to do.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah, I understand. I do have another question. Mr. Rombardo, you want to chime in?
I do, and if I may speak for David, we were actually all in a meeting when this came up, and we were having issues with student activity funds because they are this ambiguous creature of mixed funding, and we started to realize that these were some of the issues that administrators were bringing to us, not athletic directors and coaches, but administrators were like, how do we spend this? What do we do with it? And then we found out that certain people were working directly with the coaches and spending this money. Obviously, when you have a blend of public money, we've got to be able to account for it. So I want to support purchasing and Tom's folks and say we totally agree that this was necessary. And I think I might even said we have to do this. This is a no-brainer. This is too much public funds going out the door without having some control over the situation. We just wouldn't be good stewards.
Yeah, just to put into perspective, these funds are presented as part of our comprehensive annual financial report. They are audited. Our internal auditor reviews these funds as we should when we're legally required to. About over $6 million flows through these funds for our elementary, middle, and high school, so it's not a small amount of money.
I guess a couple of things. One is I guess I'm kind of piggybacking on what Trustee Mayor asked a little bit. So if a booster club, a PTO, whatever the case may be, if they say Max Sports, for an example, and we want, there's that spirit package, and we've already ordered, because you guys already have some pending orders, so I'm sure people have ordered for, volleyball and soccer, whatever the early sports are, right? Some of those have already been out there. They want to keep that going, whatever. So they could do that. If the PTO did it and it didn't get deposited into school funds, or if the booster club did it and it didn't get deposited into school funds, or something like that. So the coach could say, we're getting our spirit pack from MAC or from Angie's Athletics or whatever the case may be, right? But if they deposit it internally, then whatever the award is awarded ultimately from this board, those vendors.
That's correct. And I think that's very important, because many a times I've seen I'll give you an example. When an elementary school went to uniforms, I saw a requisition come through that was for $30,000. The law requires you to do something informal, but have an informal solicitation at $25,000. So I began that process, and they were up in arms because there was a donation or a grant, and they specifically, the donor wanted to buy from this company. And I said, well, if the donor wants to go out and buy from that company and donate those items, that's perfectly okay because the monies haven't mixed. But if that donor donates the money and we put them into the school accounts, they become public funds and they're subject to the statute.
Yeah, I think I understand. And that's part of being a good steward, because once it comes into the school and the school is making the purchase, the community as a whole, they don't know the difference between, well, some of that money came in from parents or from the car wash or from, they have the school made this purchase and this happened.
That's exactly right.
And so I certainly understand. I certainly understand that, and certainly support it. Mr. Rombardo, you want to, and then Trustee Mayor?
If I may add to what you said, and I don't mean to be nitpicky, but I guess that's what you guys pay me to do, is you mentioned coaches may be able to direct this money. I would be very concerned with coaches collecting money from boosters and things and directing money of any kind. If a booster, which exists outside of the coach, wants to buy stuff from Max or whatever, that's not a district issue. So what I want to point out is I think it would be a violation of policies through the ed side of the house that coaches could somehow collect money and then buy their uniforms wherever they want.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean the coach could collect it. I meant the coach could
Sorry.
say, go out to Max Sport and buy this package. That's what, and buy this T-shirt.
Got it.
That's what I meant. No, coaches do not collect money. That's what I meant. They could say, buy that from Mac. Yeah, no. Get some water. We're okay. Trustee Mayor?
Yeah, you know, the time when coaches used to go down to the sportsman and outfit their teams is over with, I guess. But you know, every once in a while I'll see these teams come in for the Nugget competition of basketball, and it'll be like Eureka. And they come in and they're dressed to the nines, you know. They all got Nikes to match. They're beautiful. And so that's when I asked this one gal, I says, where do you guys get all this out in Eureka, your local sports? Oh no, we go through Max Sports. And so that's when I looked into it. And they do a lot. They have, if you want to find out what the score between Reno and Hug is in football, you go on there and they got it right as soon as the game ends. And they got a whole bunch. And that's why I'm asking these questions, because a lot of booster clubs could do that, I would assume.
It sounds as though they could, a booster club in and of themselves could do that. My other question was this, certainly there are some concerns, and and I voiced mine, and others have voiced theirs as well. What are our options? I should ask you, and Andrea, I'm going to look to you as well. If as a board, we were to say we wanted to, we would grant this award, but only for 1 year, so that some of those other things can be followed up on, as opposed to the option. Is that even possible, or not because of the RFP?
Well, what I would say is, because of the amount being spent, each renewal will come back to this board. So if we, as a purchasing department, are recommending renewal, we will come back to the board with that renewal, and you would have to approve that renewal. As far as whether or not you can say only for 1 year, I'd have to defer to Neil on that. I don't know the answer to that.
I would be very concerned about changing the terms and conditions of the RFP without a legal issue. I would be. Because those three vendors, again, that side of it would come back and say, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Rombardo. Other questions, comments? What's the pleasure of the board at this time? Yes, Trustee Holland?
Are there limitations on the circumstances under which a renewal would occur? In other words, would we have to make findings to not renew?
So There would be a few reasons we wouldn't renew. Number one, we do send out a supplier evaluation to many end users before we renew a contract. So we in the purchasing department do not make that decision without data. So we do send out an evaluation to end users and have them evaluate the performance of the vendors and ask them if they would recommend that we renew it. So we don't do it without the support of at least a subsection of people using it, right? I can't survey every single solitary coach in the district and AP and principal and all of that, but we don't, if the overwhelmingly they feel that they haven't gotten good service from a particular vendor, then we would not move forward with renewal. We would go back out, and we've done that before. If evaluations showed that the end users would recommend renewal, then we just reach out to the vendors to see if they're interested in renewals. Maybe they're not interested. Maybe we put too much pressure on them. Maybe we were too demanding. Maybe the volume was higher or alternatively much lower than they had anticipated. So the pricing and the discounts they gave us, they weren't able to make any money and they don't want to renew. So it has to be agreed to mutually, and I don't make that decision on my own. So we have to reach out to the end users if they want to renew, then we reach out to the vendors to see if they want to renew. And if everybody wants to renew, then we bring that recommendation to the board.
And I guess the next part of that is for Neil. So if everybody's happy, is there any limitation on the board's decision-making authority to not renew?
Well, ultimately, you enter into the contract. You're the decider. I was thinking of a different thing here, so I was reading something different. So I only partially listened, but I think I understand the question. So if I don't answer correctly, will you ask again? But thank you. If I do understand what you're asking correctly, I think ultimately you are the decider of the contract. I think there's two issues to consider in this circumstance. Would be one is business practice. I don't think it's necessarily good business practice to enter into a multi-year contract with somebody where you have options and they come and do a good job, and just because you don't want to, you don't enter into it. I think that would always be a difficult decision for purchasing down the road. I think the second part is it would probably expose us to some level of litigation, because I think the vendor would come back and say something along the lines of, hey, wait a second, we did everything you asked, and you're not re-upping us, and it was our understanding if we do what you ask, you were going to re-up us. So those would be my two concerns.
And I think that's really valid input, because I don't want us to go into this thinking that we have that flexibility when we may not.
Again, looking to the board on desired action or inaction, being the case.
Well, I know none of us have a great appetite for this, but based on council's guidance that we would have to find a statutory violation in order to uphold the appeal, I can't find a statutory violation that I can point to. So I would, with great regret, move to deny the appeal.
There is a motion on the floor to deny the appeal.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Well, with great regret, I will second that.
It has been moved and seconded both with great regret. Yes, so then open for discussion, yes.
Thank you, Madam President. I do respect the right of the appellants to pursue whatever they pursue. Again, I don't think we do this with any satisfaction, and I think we do it because we recognize that statutorily our hands are tied, but if someone wants to prove otherwise to us, we respect your right to do that. Those are just comments.
Any further comments? So it is no longer public comment time, so we'll make the decision here.
I don't ask a question of us because I have direct evidence of what he's saying, the lawyer, what he's saying. One of the athletic directors is getting money from one of the bidders.
I would, okay, so what I would say is, and that should be a part of whatever your next steps should be. This isn't the appropriate time for us to deal with that here. I mean, so certainly not to disregard that or say, but this isn't the appropriate venue for something such as that here.
But we did bring
Okay.
up
No, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to just bring it back here to just to keep order in the meeting. But again, we certainly respect your right to move forward with whatever information you have, or anything like that. We certainly respect your right to do that. I know it's difficult, but I appreciate your understanding. We need to continue on and keep order in the process from a protocol standpoint. Any further discussion here from the table? We have a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded that the appeal, based upon the legalities, that the appeal be denied. Mr. Rombardo?
I want to, I'm going to ask you for a 5-minute recess so I can research what he's alleging, because we might want to create a record, but I need to go look at some case law, and I don't want to. I mean, I think I'm pretty good, but I'm not that good, guys, so I need a couple minutes to review this.
Okay, then the board meeting will be in a 5-minute recess, and we'll come back in 5 minutes and take up the vote from there. We have a motion that's still pending on the floor.
Yeah.
5-minute recess.
Sorry.
Chief General Counsel, Mr. Rombardo.
There is.
There is.
And
this is part of the discussion on the motion, I believe, Mr. Mayor.
Right.
This is part of that as we consider this. So thank you very much, sir.
But if you're worried about the procedure, John, we would ask that the motion be withdrawn. Would you like to do that? I would. Okay.
Okay, who's the maker of the motion?
I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay, second. Okay, thank you very much. That way we're procedurally, we know we're above board. And now we'll turn it over to Chief General Counsel.
Great. So thank you for the time, and sorry if I seemed overwhelmed. I was a little bit probably, but I was trying to catch up in my head on how to make this work for the board and make the district in the best legal defense. So the appeal does require that it is stated with specificity the reasons the person is filing the appeal and the applicable laws that were violated. That was not done here. However, during the presentation, I think the board heard that Team Sports Inc. think they have a violation, although they've never provided this information to the board. I think it's in the best interest of the board at this point, since they do have an allegation that might be a legal allegation, to go ahead and hear the issue. I think the issue that they've raised is under 332.800, subsection 2, which is simply that one of the evaluators either directly or indirectly had a stake in the contract. I don't think the board should consider anything outside of that. That's the only legal issue they've raised. I think we should go ahead and hear them. I want to admonish the board quickly that you are not to discuss the character, competence, alleged misconduct of any individual because no individual has been noticed, because we were never provided information regarding this. That would be a violation of the open meeting law, and so I want to be very clear, we do not, as a board, discuss names or any other identifiers. I would suggest to the appellants, I am not your legal counsel, I cannot provide you legal advice. I would suggest that you're very careful and that you provide evidence. And I also want to point out to the board that evidence, you make the judgment on evidence, but I would suggest that hearsay, such as person ABC told me that person XYZ is doing this at school DEF, that's probably not evidence. In my world, that would not be evidence, but that's up to you to decide. However, it has to be evidentiary. It can't just be, we think this is happening. So going back to what I previously stated to the appellants, you are welcome to say what you want. I would strongly suggest that you're very careful about what you say. If it's lying or misrepresentation or holding somebody in a false light, you can be liable for slander, but that's up to your attorney to advise you. At that point, I think it's in the best interest of the board to at least hear what they have to say, and then the board consider whether or not that's true legal evidence.
Okay, that being said, then we will invite, thank you, staff, if you would, we would invite our two gentlemen back here, Mr. Butch and Mr. Carl from Team Sports Inc., to please sit and then share with the board the evidence you have of the misconduct that's being alleged that includes that a conflict of interest. We can, yes, and if you would turn your mic on as well. It's on, Butch. Thank you. And again, just be mindful of what was shared by legal counsel for yourself.
I get it, and that's why I had originally included in your binders a letter from a principal passed on to an athletic director who sent it on to all of his coaching staff that we had signed an all-school deal with the #1 selected vendor on this RFP. I have the letter here. I didn't include it because when we talked to council, just like what Mr. Rombardo said, this has names on it. And so, you know, I don't know if we should publicly submit this, but this is a letter from a principal to an athletic director. I'm sorry, it's from the athletic director, and what is it, Carl?
It's from the principal to all of the staff saying that she signed a contract. Well, she doesn't have the clout to sign purchasing contracts as an admin. That would have to go to the correct departments and get verified. So she sent that out to all of her staff at the school, stating they had to buy their uniforms from vendor A, okay? And in that process, we all know, okay, because I'm part of that process with other schools. I have a school in Vista, California that's on an all-school deal with me. They get $50,000 back in promo money. Some of that promo money is credit cards that the coaches use to go on to that vendor's website and get whatever gear that they need for their team, and there's no accountability for those credit cards.
But our contention is that this person was on the committee going to defend that vendor.
Because they're getting money back from that vendor. They're getting promo money back from that vendor.
And the lower you score us, the more it hurts our average scores on those scorecards.
Which this person in particular scored us considerably lower than the rest of them, and we don't know what influence that committee member had on the rest.
So, I know you can't advise me, Mr. Rombardo, but I have this letter here, but we mentioned about, you know, names, you know. So.
We did have our council reach out to Neil earlier today, so.
Let me ask this, if I may. You say you're familiar with there are other promotional kickbacks that happen in often. You mentioned.
I just said we have Vista Del Lago High School. They just got $50,000 worth.
This is common practice in this industry.
Thank you. That's the question. Thank you. That's what I was trying to ask. Thank you.
Yes, this is common practice in this industry, and our contention is not that this was offered. Our contention is the person that it was offered to
has a biased opinion against us.
Has a biased opinion
and is persuaded.
on the committee. And that was my whole contention when I came in here to begin with.
So the contention is not that the promotional discounts occur, because that does occur.
That
but
definitely occurs.
It's that
Let me
bias that person. That would bias that person. Now, why would they be biased against you because of the promotional discount?
We had direct conflict with them. This was the reason why this whole thing is happening right now. As Andrea told you, the coaches were, or the purchasing department wasn't inflicting their statute they were already supposed to be. I've been doing this for 18 years. Not one time has the purchasing department statute been enforced. Not one time. So coaches have free reign to do whatever they want with and use whoever they want with. That's fine. And they haven't been abiding by that, okay? So this is what I wanted to say about the NRS 332. Indirectly, the evaluators using the process, the committee using the process, all have a direct interest through their schools. So he has direct interest making sure that his company that he's already in an agreement with is at the front of the line. And I've had conflict with him and his principal. The principal doesn't even know me. I've asked to have meetings with her to tell her kind of what she's getting into. They didn't even go and seek other vendors in this situation to see if they're getting the best deal. They signed the agreement with this one just because another school was already doing it. And so I did go to her. I did go to her and ask her before I even brought up the purchasing, okay, to talk to her. That's all I wanted. And she wouldn't, she said, yep, I'll meet with you. And then she didn't. And so then I said, well, you know what, I got to fight for these coaches that are, their hands are being forced, and these parents that are, there's already uproar of parents going on at this school, and it's gonna fester. But then I took it to Andrea's office, and then that, obviously, if the principal's getting subpoenaed in to find out what she did wrong, I'm the bad guy, right? I didn't do nothing to this principal. All I did was try to find out what's going on and try to give her my ploy of how these agreements work.
Thank you, gentlemen. Yes, Trustee Holland. No, stay there, please. There may be questions. Please stay until.
Well, I'm just, we are advised that it's common practice, but we don't know that that happened in this case. And my inclination, and again, this isn't a motion, but my inclination is to delay this and have internal audit or whomever examine whether that was occurring, that a person who was on the panel was slated to potentially lose a reimbursement for their school based on decisions made in this process. I think that's what the allegation is.
Yeah, and trying to see what Neil said is, it's not evidence if I know that principal called another principal asking for advice and told that other principal exactly like the money portion that they'd get back. That's not evidence. I can't say that, right? Like that wouldn't be evidence, hard evidence. We have to have.
You would probably call that hearsay.
That principal would have to come in.
He would call that. I think he would call that hearsay. It wouldn't be
okay, that's what I
evidentiary.
thought. Yeah, I don't have a piece of paper that shows that with us, unfortunately. That's all.
Microphone. I see you, Andrea.
Yeah.
Let's hear from Mr. Rombarlo, and then we'll go with Ms.
Hi
Sullivan.
there. For the record, Andrea Sullivan, Director of Procurement and Contracts. I would just say that there was never a discussion among the committee about rebates or discounts. But if this is something offered by all companies that based upon volume you get certain rebates or discounts, then they wouldn't be necessarily biased by one company because they would get that from whichever company was selected, because even as they said, it's common practice in the industry. So we were never presented any discussions in there about that being in any sort of bias or influence. And, you know, if every company offers it, then everybody on that committee has some level of experience with promo dollars and discounts and everything. So if it happens and it's common practice and this is part of the volume buying, then I don't see that there was bias on the committee.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Mr. Rombarlo.
I guess the other problem is if this is common practice and every single principal, athletic director, and coach has some conflict, you know, I'm just throwing that out there. It's up to you to decide what is or what is not evidence, but that seems to be an interesting thing. I will say this, though, this is the exact reason why legal advised and purchasing agreed that we're here today, because this, you know, if you're giving people debit cards, that's a problem. Mm-hmm. And so the board is making the right decision by doing whatever it does, by at least getting the contracts out there, you know, whether it's today or at some point.
Trustee Mayor.
You know, I think the district comes under this all the time with books. Like if you buy 30 books, you get one extra textbook or stuff like that. You know, or if you buy this program, you get the videos to go with it and all that. But this sounds to me like it's one step further, that the athletic director gets a credit card and there's no check of what that's being spent on or anything. I could see if somebody said, well, if you buy your uniforms, we'll give you a coaching shirt or whatever. But if they're giving out credit cards to $50,000 for schools here in Washoe County, and the athletic director has no checks or balance on that credit card. That's kind of scary in a way.
Can I make sure you guys know a little bit more clearly on that? It's not a credit card to go use anywhere they want. It's to use with that manufacturer.
So it's a bonus for money. It's a bonus that they can use for their equipment through that
So he
guy.
can go and use that credit card or the code. They're kind of changing the process sometimes now and giving a code, right? And allowing that coach to buy whatever he wants. And unfortunately, there is no checks and balances for that. So he can buy stuff for his team, he can buy stuff for the school, or he can buy stuff for his kids.
I see. So the debit card is going to the principal, is my understanding? No, it could be the principal, the coach, the AD, whatever.
Whoever, yeah.
Whoever makes the agreement. And it should be to go back to that Angie Athletics online and buy more gear for my team.
Choose.
But Angie can get something for her daughter too.
Yes.
I mean, just because there's no accountability, if that's what
Correct.
the accusation is
Correct.
here. And that someone that was on the receiving end, at least their school, of an agreement such as that was involved in this process. That's your accusation.
Yes,
but it's common practice, and so other schools may get things like that as well. Other vendors may offer things such as that as well. Is that my understanding?
Yes, and if I could add to that, 2 of the selected vendors on this who were chosen started this in the industry, and they have turned the entire industry upside down by doing this. And what has happened is that a lot of coaches have been getting in trouble. I'm not saying here in this county, but throughout the areas, they've been getting in trouble. And then it's all done where they come in and they buy the business. I mentioned that in my poorly written and poorly presented speech, is that they attempt to buy the business and then they don't give you the customer service that you just, but this is common practice, and it is more of a card or a code, like Carl said, with that vendor. And then you have no control once that AD, or it could be a head coach, it could be a booster president, but that with those people you don't care about, but you have no idea where that dollar goes.
I see. Thank you. Any other question for the gentleman here before we go? Guys, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We'll ask staff to return. Were you aware of any kind of kickback that the schools are able to get at all?
I'm
Andrea?
aware that sometimes when companies, I think I have too many lights on this thing now. I'm aware that companies do extend volume discounts, which is not atypical. I'm not aware of credit cards being handed out. But if that's the allegation and that's the case, it should have been brought forward in their letter of appeal, and they needed to provide evidence of improprieties. But as Neil said, if that's what's going on, then it's a really good thing that we're doing this RFP and that it's going to be administered district-wide and that principals will be overseeing the use and adherence to the contracts for each school rather than leaving all of the choices to the individual coaches. So if this is going on, I'm not aware of it. I have not been provided any evidence to that fact, but I think the best thing we can do is do a competitive solicitation, award it, and then charge the principals with enforcing it.
And again, I just want to be clear. It sounds as though what's happening is they're getting debit cards that are codes that are going back to the particular vendor's site. I can't run down to Macy's with my card.
But I can use it for things that are not school related.
But I could
These are
outfit
school
my
funds.
kids.
These are
I
school
could,
funds.
yeah, I could outfit my kids. That sounds like that's part of what's out there in this, if you will. Trustee Mayor?
It sounds a lot different than textbooks. Textbooks are a volume. You know, you get a volume, you buy 30, we'll give you 35. You know, it's not, this is much more dangerous, I would think, than that, because you have no control over what the $50,000 is going for, you know.
Well, hopefully in this, with the principals, as you said, being more involved, that they will be charged
Absolutely.
they will be charged with oversight of any of those types of things that are out there. One would hope anyway. Trustee Holland?
It's obviously not a crime. It's a practice in the industry. What is troubling is that we do have something brought forward that does need to be, in my opinion, researched to determine whether there was any impropriety, and the fact that it's tied to a person who was on the evaluation committee troubles me. I do think that is potentially evidence. We don't know whether it's evidence until we investigate it further. We don't know that it's evidence of any undue influence or any indirect benefit without investigating it further. So I'm concerned about. I absolutely agree that this is more evidence for reason why we need to have a competitive or a contract in an RFP. I absolutely agree with you. And regardless, we need to make sure that something comes from the administration immediately that prohibits that practice of anyone that is using school district funds accruing any potential individual benefit that might be improper. That needs to stop immediately. But whether it rises to a statutory violation, I don't think we know that today.
No, and I think whatever we make a motion for, that we include maybe that our school district does a little investigation to see if this is common practice or not. Because if it is, I'd hate to have it come out that we haven't looked into it being noticed.
One of these things I would say as well is because it seems as though it is common practice. I don't think that's the accusation. I think you may have mentioned this, Trustee Holland, or maybe Mr. Rombardo. The concern I think all of us have is the accountability or lack thereof on what's happening with the kickbacks. If they aren't getting an extra shirt, textbooks, you get an extra book. And I think that's the concern, that there may be something that we'll want to, as our internal auditor audits student activity funds, that may be something, if those agreements are there with particular vendors, that may be something, if those things are as common, that we want that kind of accountability. If you're getting a 10% kickback and so you're going to get a $2,000 card, whereas the accountability for that needs to, so that may be something that we'll want to, we'll have to monitor that. I mean, if that's a benefit for the school, and that's a great benefit for the school. If they're getting it, then you can stretch your dollars. You can buy staff shirts. You can do awards for kids. All kinds of great things schools can use that for. So we certainly aren't against that. It's the potential for the impropriety and the inappropriate usage, and so we'll want something to be in place so that can be monitored. Again, personally, I have no problem with those agreements. If they're fair and they're benefiting the schools and they're stretching the dollars and getting some benefit, a lot of money goes through that. I don't mind that at all. But we want certainly, and it's partially for the protection of the people getting those cards. If we were getting some benefit, we will want some accountability for our protection to say, no, we're doing what we're supposed to do, partially for that. So certainly I think as we go forward, that's something we certainly want to have in place. It may be something that we, as much as I hate to, it's something we need to look into. And certainly we want to put in place the appropriate accountability for whatever that benefit may be for the school, because that is the intention for the school. Mr. Rombardo?
Yeah, I just think it's important to point out that if this is common practice in the business, then how can the board ever have or how can purchasing ever have a committee that have some bias? And everyone comes with their bias. I just don't see how. That's just me looking at it. If this is, they just told you Team Sports Inc., they do it too. So what if our 4 guys got on, that made it better? Where's the bias? They have to show that there is a bias that was created by this person, not just that this person was doing it, right? That's what the bias would be. So actually they have to show that there's a direct or indirect contract here, but everyone does it. So I'm not interested in the contract. I'm not sure that's what that means. But it's up to you. You're the board. I'm troubled by the other 3 vendors sitting out there ready to go.
Yes, Trustee Mayor.
One thing too is if Sears and Roebuck is one of the vendors, they have to prove that Sears and Roebuck went to this guy and says, hey, you vote for us or we won't give you goodies anymore. Because the vendor seems like they have the control over this. And if this guy has to be directed to do something, so it could really be a big bucket of worms, to tell you the truth.
Well, and as
Trustee Holland.
I'm sorry.
No, Trustee, that's okay. It's all of us are like, yes,
Yeah,
Trustee Holland.
as I'm struggling through trying to sort this out in my mind, the existence of a member of the evaluation committee having an expectation of an exclusive agreement with one of 3 vendors does not preclude, in other words, by virtue of the fact that they were voting on 3 or 4 and the recommendation is for 3, there is an impact regardless of whatever choice they would make. There's a potential impact of having a multiple award provided for. If I have an exclusive contract, it doesn't, I'm not saying this very well, but the fact that we have a multiple award does not bias or influence my ability to exclusively continue to contract with one. It doesn't affect it one way or another. I can still do that or not do that. So I'm working through the fact that it may in fact not be an influence on the process.
Yeah, that's a good point. The multiple award may mitigate that. May mitigate that, yeah. Other comments, questions? I'm certainly prepared once again to hear the pleasure of the board. We know we have some things moving forward. That are some challenges in terms of how we help coaches stay clear on this, coaches and athletics directors and principals for that matter. We certainly want to do that. Trustee Holland?
I think I'm prepared to restate my motion, and again, the whole process of all the things that we've learned today, there are some troubling things about it. And in the motion, I would also, again, respect the right of the appellants to pursue this, and if we're wrong about this, we respect the right of the process through legal means to tell us that we're wrong. But I would also ask in the motion that we do have internal audit explore how we can put some boundaries around this practice so that we don't have anything inappropriate happening immediately. Get that in place for whatever purchases are about to be made through this contract.
Yeah, I would. How about we do this? I will. I'm a little concerned that exceeds the agenda item.
Put that on a future agenda.
Yeah, future. That's what I was going to suggest. I will let you know that I have already drafted an email suggesting administrative regulations to the chief of staff and the deputy superintendent need to be placed over this funding. So I sent that email as we're sitting here. If that makes.
We don't need to have a.
So you maybe don't even need a motion.
Don't need an agenda item. Okay.
Shall we go back to clarify your motion a little bit?
Can I still, in the motion to deny the appeal, can I still say that we do have concerns about practices that are related to this contract, and staff will.
Ask staff to. Okay. You got that, JJ? JJ's looking at me like, what?
Neil, can you clarify that, please?
Or Trustee
Motion to deny the appeal.
Yes.
With concern for the practices that are part of the contract. And and staff will follow up.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is that the appeal be denied, express concerns with the practices, and ask staff to follow up appropriately. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposition? The motion is carried. Let the record show that it is unanimous. It is unanimous. Thank you to everyone. I know that was a 2-hour conversation, but we learned a lot and really needed to work through that. And again, gentlemen, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. And thank you for the education, because we certainly learned a lot on that. Okay, that was agenda item 4.02. Agenda item number 5.01, any future agenda items? We've already taken care of dispenses with one of them. Anything else further on the minds of the trustees? Yes, Trustee Holland?
I would restate Trustee Kelly's interest in how we might incorporate some local preference in our bidding for non-public works projects, and maybe have that come back as an agenda item.
Okay, certainly, certainly. Any further? Okay, any public comment, JJ? No public comment, then our meeting is adjourned. Remember, our next meeting is August 8th, 2 p.m. right here. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. I'm sorry? At TMCC, that's right, because that's when boardroom reconstruction is going to begin. And we all got that email today on the next several board meetings, policy committee meetings, and so on, special meeting and their locations. So please write those down so you show up at the right place. Thank you, everybody.